Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. Hello, everybody. Wonderful to see you. I've just got a few things to get done here, and then we'll be able to get started right away. Okay, everything is looking good. I'm all by myself. But really good news is the really good news is Colleen, Sinead, Dante, and Chloe are on the last leg of their journey. They were in Alabama, sweet home Alabama, last night, hanging out, with Ronnie Van Zant, who of course is alive, um, and having a good old time. But they'll be in Florida they'll be in Florida at their destination with Jassy tonight. So everything's gone well. But I know they're glad to have that journey over. It's a lot of driving. It's a lot more driving than they anticipated. America is a big and beautiful country. But they got to see a lot. Were able to stop at Mount Rushmore, which was a great treat. And so, yeah, that's where we're at. I sent the link to call. If she feels up to it, she can pop in later and say hi. I'm not even sure what time she'll be getting in, but it's pretty cool. Geraldine is saying someone is honking and yelling outside, upsetting the dogs. That's weird. But the doggies are doing great, Geraldine. Doggies are doing great. So yeah, love everyone. Going to be an amazing show. It's been such a busy week for me and such a busy day. Before Colleen left, she took on two more rabbits. Like, we need more rabbits, like we need more holes in our head. But the situation with the rabbits was and they're beautiful. Situation with the rabbits was not a good situation, and Colleen asked, and I said, well, what are we supposed to do? Say no? You can't. You just can't. You can't say no. So, but it's just with Colleen going, it's a lot to add on top of everything else for myself and Geraldine and the great crew that we have here. But what we didn't know is that it wasn't Harry Potter and Ron, it was Harry and Hermione. And Hermione was pregnant, and she's already had 5 babies, just had them 2 days ago. And Geraldine and Gerardo have been doing a wonderful job looking after them. But there is one who's smaller than the others, and they're concerned about it. So, and this is what took up all the rest of my day. So, welcome to my meal. Yeah, welcome to my only food today. It's been a busy day, but it's certainly well worth it. And so we made up more formula for Geraldine. Geraldine got these adorable, teeny little bottles with smaller nipples, and I've been so busy. Jerry never had a chance to tell me how the feeding went. So in the chat, if you could just let myself and everyone else know how the feeding went for that little baby. I think they were concerned that because it was the smallest, it was being sort of shoved away. And obviously at this stage, they won't last more than a day like that. So whatever we have to do, we will absolutely do, because that's just who we are. And make sure that they're well taken care of. Like we always like to say, the best care anywhere. So Geraldine, she ate a little bit and everyone is good right now. Okay, fantastic. Thanks, sweetie pie. And yeah, so we've got quite a few bottles all prepped for her. And we will always strive to do our best and give our beautiful furry and feathered animals the best care anywhere, of which Geraldine is a huge part of as well. So, but yeah, it's been a really busy week, and it has been a really busy day. And it's not ideal because this subject is so near and dear to my heart. The topic of the show tonight, Mary Magdalene and the bloodline of Yeshua and Mary, through the firstborn, which was a girl. It's a girl. And it was the beautiful Sarah, and who herself became quite a legend across the south of France, and then eventually all of France, then eventually all of Europe and through the Mediterranean. Most of you don't know about this because both sides have been trying to keep everything as secretive as possible. Obviously, the game's over for the Catholic Church, and there are still so many people blindly standing up for everything they've said and done, and all that. It's just unbelievable. Just need to remember, Yeshua would never have created a religion and would never have had a formal church where everyone would come to him. It would have been a grassroots thing where he and his disciples would have gone on a grassroots level to the people, walking the countryside, free, open, honest, no strings attached, simply the truth. And the truth, as always, in a teaching form, which is parables and allegories. which you may not get now, but it's all about planting those seeds. And when your soil is rich enough, those seeds, those righteous seeds, will take root. Yeah, for Geraldine, just you just need to rest the rest of the day, sweetie, and we'll all get at it tomorrow. Okay, sweetie. So please just rest up. So yeah, it's just religion is done for. They're our enemy, and there's no greater enemy of the Canaanites than the Catholic Church, which is Satanism. It is. And the punchline for the Catholic Church is that anything that anyone says that doesn't perfectly align with their bullshit story, which is the exact opposite of what Yeshua and Mary taught, the exact opposite, easily proved by you just reading and interpreting the Bible for yourself, which again is filled with so much counterfeit information. There's much truth in both the Old and New Testament of the Bible, but there's so much counterfeit information that's in there as well. And just remember, Catholicism is really Paulism. And Paul was a murderous Roman thug who is now known as the apostle of the Catholic Church, and he persecuted real Christians. Remember, there's no one by the name Jesus. The letter J didn't start to actually get used till 1700s, after the events of Yeshua in the Holy Land. So there's not been a letter J in any language until around the 1700s. Hi, Celeborn. Celeborn's missing the mama, but he knows that everything's okay because Papa's here. Hello, baby. You want to say hi to the millions and millions? You want to say hi to the millions? Everybody's doing so well. They miss Collywog so much. And right on this chair here, there's our three Chihuahuas, Kelly, who's the father, Peregrine, who's the mother, and Elisar, who's the baby boy who's double in size of both of them. So they're right next to me here. And our three new beautiful kitty cats are just running around, having fun. Octavia, Sarah, you, and Sophia. Frofro is right down underneath me here. Maggie is here. Luna is here. And it's a full house. It's a full house. So, but I am alone for the show, so we'll just do our best, and we'll see how long or how far I can go with all of this. But yeah, it'll be okay. So yeah, you just have to wake up to the fact that you've been lied to, and the Catholic Church never told the truth about anything. They're full of shit about everything. They're the worst of the worst of the worst. It's Paulism. And again, Paul is not a holy man. He's not a saint. He was a Roman centurion who persecuted and murdered so many people, including targeting these Christians. And remember, again, Yeshua is not Jesus, and Yeshua was not a Christian at all. What people say, all these people in the world identify themselves with Christianity, and that's not what Yeshua was, or Mary, or what they taught at all. It's so sick. It's not even funny. It's just pathetic, is what it is, because it's the most important thing, because ultimately he and Muhammad and Krishna and Buddha and Zoroaster and Lao Tzu and Confucius the most important philosophers, teachers, enlightened souls that the world has ever known. And all religion has done, and all instances connected to all of these truly, truly gifted men who met God face to face in a place called Pineal, did the work to raise the Kundalini and to commune with the Father. Religion has lied about every single one of them. And in virtually every single case, the absolute upside down, complete lie. And the worst two, and these are the two religions we're having the greatest problems with: Christianity. And remember, Yeshua was not a Christian at all. What Christianity says and teaches is the opposite of what Yeshua taught. Yeshua created the sect of the Nazarenes, who are of the Essenes, who are of the Gnostics, who are of the stonemasons, and before the stonemasons, there was just Atlantis. So this is this divine one story, one truth, one way, one purpose, one goal, one Father, one God, one Mother, and one path. They're the straight and narrow way. So it's a terrible, terrible shame. And a lot of what we're going to do in the show tonight is focus on the bloodline and our key, beautiful, divine, feminine figures, in particular Mary and her children, and the firstborn Sarah. And the details that you're going to get tonight are going to just it's everything. It's beyond all the proof that you or anyone else who truly comes to this video will absolutely know the truth of what is being shown here, because the information is so powerfully overwhelming. And virtually every day, week now, more and more videos about the most controversial of subjects are beginning to come up on all of these, on some of these AI channels, which are able to create content at a rate that is staggering in comparison to someone like myself. So it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, because it never ever should have ever gotten to a point where it was Colleen and I and a few others that were holding the torch of truth for all these years. Is ridiculous. So, and again, you are our witnesses, because so many of you have been with us for so long now, and you know what we've taught you. We know what we've told you, and how we've come to know this information, and where all the glory goes to, and how all of this is achieved, which is that the kingdom of God is within you. So again, Christianity is the opposite of that. It is a angry white God on some far distant planet, and he's jealous and everything else under the sun. And you have to go. You're just useless. Not really. You're certainly not a child of God. What they perceive we actually are, I think we know, but they don't actually come out and say it. But whatever we are, it's not good. But we certainly, to their mind, are born sinners. There's nothing we can do about it. The best that we can do is to continue on sinning and give all our money to the church, and ensure that only the church is allowed to interpret the Bible for you. And that's idiocy. That is stupidity and idiocy beyond any description possible. Is the dumbest thing ever, which is what religion does. And it's just like the Holocaust, and Adolf Hitler loved Jews. The Havar Act shows how unbelievably and brilliantly, unbelievably well and brilliantly he treated German Jews, those that wanted to go to Palestine, for the upcoming creation of Israel, the Holy Land, and getting all of their money, almost $6 billion. This is $6 billion, 1928 to 1940 dollars. That's an enormous amount of money. And none of it went missing. Nobody filed a complaint, and that's what they did. And remember, that's the exact system that you're going to learn all about next week when we unveil the truth of the last 2,000 years and the great plan, sting operation of the Knights Templar is our show next Saturday. Going to be amazing as well. But what you'll see is that the banking system that the Knights Templar created, which was the finest ever in the world, is precisely what Adolf Hitler did. Just saying, is exactly what Adolf Hitler did to help German Jews relocate from Germany to Palestine in preparation for this coming Holy Land. So and of course that not everybody could sell their home or sell their business, and Adolf Hitler and the Germans took care of all of that for them, and incredible. And if they didn't want money, but they wanted German goods, which are, of course, the best made goods in the world, they shipped down the dollar value worth of their funds in German goods. And it was just the most amazing thing. There have been many books written about it. But if you talk about it, if you even begin to question that truth, you're the worst person in the entire world. And it works that way with the Catholic Church. And anytime somebody controls what you are allowed to think and who that group is, well, you know that you're subjugated, you know you have no sovereignty, no freedom, no truth, and you know who your subjugator is. So again, religion is the bane. And as we go through this tonight, remember, over the last 2,000 years, it has continued to be the ultimate story, and it has not stopped, and now it's just heating up. It's just heating up like crazy now, and that is the great lie of Catholicism and the attempt to subjugate the sacred feminine. In this case, Mary Magdalene, who really was literally created, born to be this sacred divine feminine figure on earth, and they have completely obfuscated her from history. But it's worse than that. Through their military arm of the Jesuits came a little bit later, but throughout it all has been Opus Dei, and Opus Dei's purpose has been the destruction of the bloodline. So again, not only has the Catholic Church lied to you about 100% upside down lied to about the truth of the teachings and the life of Yeshua, and Yeshua and Mary Magdalene being husband and wife and having children, having a bloodline that is still with us today. It's far worse than all of that. And that's as bad as it gets, but it's even worse because what they have done is hunted. And when Q says the hunters have become the hunted, that's precisely, that signal, that all of the white hats, Trump, JFK Jr., all of the white hats love to do this when they're sitting somewhere, standing somewhere, especially in the company of others. And that's that symbology 101, and that is branding themselves as defenders, Knights Templar, absolutely, defenders of the sacred feminine, which the Knights Templar are, which the stonemasons were, which is what everything that is good in this modern world all came from. It all originally came from Atlantis, but it came through ancient Egypt and the stonemasons. And that's where Freemasonry came from. Freemasonry is it only started in the late 1600s, officially in the early 17s. But Freemasons are just the Knights Templar who reinvented themselves. And that's what we're going to show you, just like on the show tonight. Overwhelming proof, details, details, details. And with the Knights Templar, and next week, it's all the coincidences, everything that lines up, and all the I's are dotted and the T's are all crossed. Everything that happened with regard to Friday, October 13th, 1307, then the whole rest of history is tied to that event. And it's all the Knights Templar going underground, which they were all prepared to do. It's all part of the plan. And to start this revolution, to destroy the power of the Canaanites on the earth, and eventually bring us back to where we're headed, which is a return to God. So like I did in that post on X, if you haven't seen it, get to X at CharlieFreak1, just the number 1 at CharlieFreak1. That's where you find us. That's the only place you can find us other than right here on Rumble, which is Freak Sense TV. That's it. And if you haven't seen that post, read that post. You'll know it by the picture of Mel Gibson as William Wallace. Who do you think William Wallace was? They showed it to everyone in the movie. When it came time to defend the sovereignty of Scotland, only those nobles who were with God and were good sovereign Knights of the Round Table men, they're the only ones that stood up. And they were defeated by Edward the Longshanks of England, and William Wallace's father was killed, and he was just a young boy. So again, in the movie, they show Brian Cox arriving. He is a Scotsman, but he lives in northern France, in the Champagne region of northern France. That was the Knights Templar headquarters, and he asked young William if the Pope gave, or if the priest gave a poetic benediction in Latin, and he said, I don't know, I don't speak Latin. He says, you don't? Aye, well, we'll have to remedy that, won't we? And a mite other things too. So that by the time that Mel Gibson returns as William Wallace, when William Wallace returned, he was that man. He was that one man in a million. He was a Templar Knight. And when it came time after the absolute horrific underhanded methods that Edward the Longshanks used to betray and capture, and then of course quarter William Wallace, then the Templar Knights, who at this point were now most of them were already in hiding, they became those warrior poet knights of Scotland on the field of Bannock in 1314. And again, 1314, how does that tie into anything? 1314, Edward de Molay, and the last of the Knights Templar, Edward de Molay being, the head of the Order of the Knights Templar and founder. Edward de Molay burned at the stake, cursed both the Pope and Philip IV, and said that you will meet me in the afterlife, and soon, and within the year, both King Philip IV of France and the Pope were both dead inside that year, just as Edward de Molay predicted. And of course, the Scots defeated the English against all odds, because it wasn't just Scotsmen who were fighting for their freedom with Robert the Bruce who had taken up the mantle, which is what William Wallace wanted anyways, is for the Bruces, and in particular Robert the Bruce, to stand up and be who they were supposed to be. And so Robert the Bruce led not just the Scots, but an army of the Knights Templar. And by 1325, that's only 11 years after they were all dead and gone, the first banking system in Geneva, Switzerland was created. By the 15th century, within 150 years, it was the biggest, most trustworthy, and biggest and trustworthy banking system in all of Europe in just 150 years. Gee, I wonder who created the Swiss banks, which is essential, right? No questions asked. It's where all the bad guys hide their money, because with the Swiss banks, it's no questions asked. What better way? What better way, when the time was right, when everything was ready, to drain their accounts and leave them with nothing? When Switzerland became a country in, I think, the early 1829, I think it was, early 1800s, again, who do you think the founding fathers of Switzerland were? It's all part of this plan, a plan that was the stonemason plan that became the goal of the Knights Templar. The Knights Templar were never tricked and never wholly defeated by the cowardly, backstabbing Catholic Church, which, by the way, always tries to just blame it on King Philip IV of France. But no, it was a Catholic Church cowardly op. So this is what we're dealing with. So when you side with Catholicism, when you believe in the Roman Bible, again, you just have to understand, it's not, the Catholic Church is Roman Catholicism. Rome, SPQR, which is never about the Senate. We did that amazing show about the two opposing bloodlines and the truth of Rome. It's always these hidden families that give the perception of a republic and of freedom, but there's never ever been. And every time that Rome has felt the wrath of the people, it's just reinvented itself in a different way, in another way. And that's what they continue to do behind the scenes. So it's all connected. Everything is connected. We'll never, ever, ever be able to do another show from the last 6 months forward without it completely connected to all of the previous shows and what's coming next. It's all connected. It's all connected. This plan of the good and righteous to defeat this rotten group of evil required a plan, and it required time. Time to infiltrate, time to learn all of their operations, time to find out who the heck they were. Where were they? Because nobody could see them. They only saw representatives of them. And then when they found out they were underground and what they'd become, then where underground? And how do you get access? So everything has taken so much time, because it's not just the United States, or it's not just Europe. It's every continent. It's every nation on earth, because if we leave any people to themselves, any nation or any group of peoples to themselves, that's where the Canaanites will flee to, and then they'll just use that as their base of operations, and nothing ultimately has changed. So it had to be a complete takedown of the Canaanites, People say the cabal. The cabal is just a term for their minions, their above earth minions. Most famous of which would be the Khazarian mafia of Khazaria and Ukraine, and but none bigger than Rome. And Rome is the Catholic Church, and Rome wrote the Bible. Rome murdered Yeshua and got away with it, and still to this day nobody does anything about it, but it just totally okay. But it's not. None of this is okay. And what they did to women, what they did to our children, what they did to good, righteous men through the Inquisition, the Malleus Maleficarum, just endless. What they did to the Catholic monks who were levitating by knowing that the kingdom of God is within us and going within, and they had to be destroyed. And all of the records and the influence of Rome and Egypt, and destroying all of these outposts and outliers of great tradition and great records, burning as many papyrus manuscripts as possible, destroying everywhere they went, and destroying all of the imagery. People say all the time, well, if Egypt was truly the Palestine, the Holy Land, then, why are we really just talking about, the Great Pyramids at Giza and just a few of the, because that's what Rome did. That's what the Canaanites did. They went everywhere in the world, destroying everything that they could. Any symbology that they were capable of bulldozing it to the ground, they could, but they can't with the pyramids. That's why the pyramids lasted. It's the same reason why there's so many mesas and buttes, because they can't get rid of those trunks of great silicone trees. Carbon. Well, maybe it's more than just carbon. Maybe the trees, as Genesis talks about, touch the firmament of the sky, because they're silicone. So it's sickening, just absolutely sickening. And the show tonight is what they did to the sacred feminine, in particular to the best of the best, the divine of the divine, Mary of Bethany and Magdala, Mary Magdalene, and her incredible bloodline. She is the cup of Christ. She is the cup of Christ. Well, just because Da Vinci painted that doesn't make it the truth. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Because how many people have ever known the truth? A few. And the vast majority have never known much of anything but old wives' tales, which are good. That's an excellent source of truth. And then in the day and age of the mass media, then they just know lies. So only the few have ever known numerology, have only really known astrology or astrotheology, have only really known all of this divine symbology, both within us and without, everywhere in nature. It's got to turn that bloody light on, mate. So yeah, it sure is frustrating, hey? So, just understand that the Catholic Church is Rome, and fake Rome, SPQR, fake Rome, Canaanites. And they've lied about everything. And, you call yourself a Christian. Yeshua wasn't a Christian at all. And Christianity just comes from Paul, who never was an apostle. They're just lying to you. He was a murderous thug for the Romans who persecuted and murdered tens of thousands of this sect of Yeshua and Mary. And that's what they did. They just destroyed the truth, and they replaced it with lies. And if you attempt to refute the lies, just like the fake Jews and the fake Holocaust, blaming everything on Adolf Hitler, quite possibly the second best man of the last 2,000 years, and blaming him for everything. But you can't question it. You can't question any of this stuff, or they killed you. And in this day and age, they're economic hitmen. So they attack you in every way possible until your lives are ruined. So that's where we've been. Let's never go there again. And let's start the show tonight. And let's get to the bottom of these truths. And I'm so excited about the show tonight. I am so excited about the show for next Saturday as well. Powerful, overwhelming truth. And you'll share this and share this and share this. And some people will just go, no, whatever. You're planting seeds. And if their soil is poor, of course, they're not going to be able to process what's being shared here. But I assure you, I guarantee you that what Colleen and I have always shared with you is the truth. We've had to do it in bits and pieces and stages and build and build and build. But I think all of you have noted for the last, 6-8 months, it's just been building in huge blocks and huge steps. And tonight is yet another. And next week, just these are massive, absolutely massive symbols of the ultimate truth that we should be talking about, and not so much about Trump and all that. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. It is already happening. It takes time because people are not ready to hear the truth. And it all goes back to Rob Reiner and getting, two superlative actors on both sides, Tom Cruise on one side, Jack Nicholson on the other, and saying, hey, listen, I demand the truth. I deserve the truth. And Jack Nicholson's going, well, then stand a post, you freaking coward, at your little social gatherings and parties. You don't want to be on that wall. You need me on that wall. You want me on that wall because somebody has to be there. And on the other side of the wall are freaking monsters. That wall has to be watched. So I'd rather you just came to me and said, thank you for keeping horrors at bay that would terrify, your wife and children to stone if they heard them. I'd rather you just thank me and be the end of it. But I don't owe you anything until you stand post yourself. And that's where we're at today. Everybody's demanding the truth, a truth that they couldn't even begin to process. They couldn't. I can guarantee you what would happen with, and I'm just talking about the truth community, which is supposed to be so far ahead of the Muggles, but aren't. So you want to move forward, you want all this to end, then open your mind and show them that you're ready for the truth, whatever it is. Whatever that truth is, it's the truth, and we must accept it. And you'll find that it's beautiful. You'll find that it's simple. You'll find that there's just one story. There's a billion different lies, but there's one truth. There's one path, and there's one way. And remember, and you get this bullshit in the Gospel of John where Jesus says, I am the life, and I am the light, and I am the way. It's not what he said. That's not what he said ever. And of course, he wasn't saying that and wasn't meaning that at all, because he said, I am not the Father. I serve the Father, and don't ever idolize me. But that's what everybody does. And again, it's just another thing that, shut the fuck up, Jesus. We don't listen to you. We listen to your handlers, and they tell us what to do. So Yeshua says, call me by my real name. No. Follow my teachings. Verily, verily, I say unto you, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not the things I say? Well, these guys are going to kill us if we don't. So go figure. It's just horse shit. All of it. So put away your frustration and your anger and your demands. Go stand post on the wall. Okay? Do the work. Go within. The kingdom of heaven, Christ taught, that one snuck through. It's like the book of Matthew and chapter 6 are like, how did they let that get through? Right? They pretty much slammed everything else into oblivion, but that snuck through. So let's get started with the show, and it all connects, and it's going to be amazing. So Geraldine came across this video last week, and we're only going to watch just a small part of it. But Jerry was just, vibrating after she saw this. It's about a 24-minute video, and it's about the bloodline, and the bloodline is real. It's not just symbolic, and Mary wasn't just a spiritual equal of Yeshua. They were bonded. They were bonded both physically and spiritually, and that's why Da Vinci created the Last Supper, showing you this symbol of the sacred feminine in between the Christ and the sacred feminine, creating this, in the negative space between them, creating this cup of Christ. That's the cup of Christ. And of course, in season 3, when Dallas Jenkins was still partnering with Angel Studios and giving us the truth, or a lot of truth about Yeshua, he had that great scene in Bethany where everyone was there. Is at Lazarus' home, with Martha and Mary being there, Mary of Bethany, and Mary of Bethany is Mary Magdalene. And the Mary Magdalene in The Chosen is just that Mary who was accused of being a whore in a square in Jerusalem, and Yeshua walked by and they were about to stone her to death, and he said, "Hey, just wait a sec." He said, "I'll help you stone her, but maybe let's just ask ourselves this question first, and then I'll pick up a rock and help you." And he said, "Let he who has not sinned in his own life cast the first stone." Everybody looks to the ground and starts kicking the dirt, and the rocks drop out of their hand, and everybody leaves. Everybody leaves. And she says, "Lord, Lord, why did you save me so?" And because I love you, because you're good. You've just forgotten who you are, and everything is against you in this world. Follow this way. Follow me is following this way. So when Yeshua said, "I am the life, the light, and the way," I am is God. I am is not, you're not reading a literal history book. You're reading ancient numerology, symbology, the ancient gnosis of this world. I am is the name of God. So when Yeshua says, "I am the light, I am the life, I am the way," he's saying God is the life, the light, and the way. And that's why he's saying to you, don't worship me. I'm not God. I'm like you. I am a man like you, that who did great things because I surrendered to the Father and I align myself to his will, and I do his will on earth. And you will do greater things than I, by standing on my shoulders and doing the same thing, which is the inner work. What is the inner work? Well, the kingdom of God is within. Luke 17:21. Luke 17:20, when the Pharisees demanded of Christ when this kingdom of God would show itself, present itself, he said, "It won't, it doesn't, for the kingdom of God is within you." The work is meditation. Where do you find the word meditation in this Roman Bible? You don't. But that's everything that he taught. And yet, it's been washed away wiped out, destroyed, taken completely. The work is the inner work. That's why when he got tired of the apostles and everybody else, he went in every time. It says this in the Bible, where he went to the Mount of Olives to get away from everyone and to recharge his batteries. He went into a cave. He went in to the cave of his mind upon the Mount of Olives. The truth of truths in plain sight. So I'm going to show you just a short 5-minute clip from this first video, and then we're going to watch something that will blow you away completely. So this first one came from Jerry, and it's just right at the end of the video. I highly recommend you watching this one as well. It is 21 minutes in length, and you'll be able to see it on the screen. It's from the channel The Lost Gospel, and it's called The Truth About the Daughter of Jesus and Mary Magdalene Finally Revealed. So, and someone can put that into the chat as well. So let's get started with this absolutely brilliant, breathtaking show of shows. And we're going to play this final 5-6 minutes of this one video. And this came from Geraldine.
Lives in flesh and blood, then you too are a bearer of divinity. You too are part of the living Grail, and this is the revelation that cannot be controlled. Institutions can suppress texts, burn heretics, silence voices, but they cannot erase the truth written in the human soul. The spark of God dwells within you. The legend of the daughter of Jesus and Mary Magdalene is at its heart a mirror. It reveals the sacred feminine long suppressed, reminding us that balance between masculine and feminine is the key to wholeness. It reminds us that love, not hierarchy, was the true foundation of Christ's teaching. And it reminds us that our bodies, our blood, our lives are not separate from divinity. They are its expression. Ask yourself this: if you carry the same divine essence that Jesus carried, how would you live your life differently? Would you speak your truth with more courage? Would you treat others with greater reverence? Would you see your own lineage, your parents, your children, your ancestors, as sacred vessels of an unbroken chain of divinity? This is the ultimate revelation, and it is far more powerful than any hidden archive or secret document. The bloodline of Christ is not only about a daughter born 2,000 years ago, it is about the awakening of humanity to its true inheritance. The Grail is not lost because it is not a relic to be found. It is within us, here and now, waiting to be recognized. The mystics understood this. The Cathars who died at Montségur whispered as they perished, "The kingdom of God is within you." The Gnostic texts banned by the Church taught the same truth.
Los datos son el nuevo petróleo. Aprende a trabajarlos. Empieza con Python en nuestro webinar gratuito. Los datos.
That enlightenment is not granted by external authorities, but discovered within one's own soul. And even the most radical interpretations of the Grail legends point to this same conclusion. The treasure was never material. It was always spiritual, carried in human hearts and passed through living memory. Perhaps Sarah existed. Perhaps the bloodline of Jesus continues through history, hidden in plain sight. But the revelation that matters most is this: whether through blood or through spirit, the divine lineage continues in you. You are the continuation of the sacred story. You are the vessel. You are the Grail. Let that truth sink deeply, because when you awaken to it, your life cannot remain the same. The sacred feminine and masculine unite within you. The human and divine are reconciled within your being. The veil between heaven and earth dissolves. And suddenly, the hidden truth about the daughter of Jesus and Mary Magdalene is no longer just history. It becomes a living reality in your own existence. Now I invite you to reflect. What does this revelation awaken in you? Does it stir awe, resistance, curiosity? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because your voice is part of this unfolding conversation.
And it is. It's an unfolding conversation. It's an unfolding realization of truth. We're just awakening to what we always knew, that we've just been lied to for so long we've forgotten. So the awakening is remembering who we truly are. And again, the most divine thing that we could ever be is to know thyself, because if we know thyself, it means we have to know the Father, and then we're one and the same. And that the true wisdom comes from knowing thyself. The only way to know thyself is to go within. If you go out there, for example, if you asked your parents who you are, what they will tell you, well, I guarantee you, will be as far from the truth of who you actually are as could possibly be. Parents are stressed. Parents are challenged. Parents will do and say what they need to somehow keep their family from living out on the streets and collapsing. So parents do and say whatever parents need to do and say to be able to survive. That's not the way to parent. How can we have a reality, a system where parents can't look after their own children because of inflation? And inflation can't exist unless you have debt-based currency, which is illegal and unlawful. You can't have money but charge interest on the money, which the only way you can pay back is to borrow more money to pay back the interest on the original money. Like, it's insane. It's insane. It's illogical. It's unlawful. The whole reality is like this. Everything is completely upside down, a 180 of the truth. So I love what they're saying in this, that it's you. Don't worry if your blood, but my blood, Charlie, is B positive, and I heard that it's only AB negative, or I've only heard that it's. Are you kidding me? Your blood doesn't really mean all that much and doesn't hold that much power. The cells within your blood do, and inside your cells are DNA, and your DNA are always adapting, changing based upon your epigenetics, your environment, what you live in, what you hold on to, truth or lies. Lies, and guess what? All your spiritual DNA turns off, and you can't levitate, you can't fly, you can't meditate. You have no remembrance of who you once were, or the kingdom of God is within you, because you yourself, you were bullied, but you yourself shut off all of your spirit DNA. And remember, spirit DNA, levitation, flight, because it has no weight. It's pure spirit. Physical DNA, the what we call matter-based DNA, is of the material plane. It holds us to the material plane. And so what the great scientists, who are also smart and good and kind, they just call all this DNA, and we don't know. I do. How do they not know? Maybe they're lying. All of this DNA that we're not using, they just call junk DNA, and don't worry about it. Wow, it's you living forever. It's two worlds as one. It's you becoming the alchemical man or woman and living forever. You don't have to die of the physical. You just have to regenerate your cells. You do that through truth. You do that through love. You do that through light. You do that through kindness. So you don't have, and parents have, you're going to have kids. They're your responsibility, not the state's. You're their teachers until they learn to teach themselves by going within. You are their medical providers until such time that they learn for themselves. Sorry, doctors, but you're out of jobs. You know, there's always going to be those people who want to continue to live the out there and whatever. It's up to them. But It's the kingdom of heaven. Everything can be healed by the father or the mother like this, but you have to have them turned on within you. You have to be connected to them as one. And then everything that's happening to you is happening to them, and they are always in perfect balance. So therefore, you are always in perfect balance. So as soon as something is beginning to go haywire with you, no more. Nothing ever gets to a problem. Everything is dealt with in the moment. That's medicine. Let the food you eat be thy medicine. You don't eat death to have life. You don't murder living creations of God in the tunes of 6 to 8 to 10 now trillion living sentient species every year, and then eat their decaying death to have health and life, and you have to commit murder to do it. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. All of it is insane. It's time to wake up. That's the beginning of the awakening process, is you just open your eyes and see, oh my God, what are we doing? This isn't so obvious that what we're doing is wrong. It's so obvious. I don't know how we didn't. That's what will happen to everyone. They'll just start to say to you, it's like I was in a dark dream and I just woke up and I don't even know why I was doing half the stuff I was doing. So that's what this is all about. And I just loved that it's with you, because your blood is governed by your spirit, and your spirit is infinitely more powerful than your blood. So it's energy. So therefore it's frequency. So therefore it's vibration. You want to be of the bloodline of Yeshua and Mary? You are. You already are, ye children of Abel through his brother Seth. You already are. Be it, live it, do it. It's up to you. What you choose becomes your reality. You create that energy. That means you create that frequency and those vibrations, and your blood will be their blood. You will have the blood of Yeshua and Mary flowing within you. You don't need to be AB. That's how it works with the Father. Doesn't matter if you're B positive or AB negative or O or whatever. Doesn't matter. It's about what you do. What does the Catholic Church say? It's nothing about what you do. You're born sinner. You're born worthless and useless. There's nothing that you can do except hand over your money and let us interpret the Bible for you. Wow. I mean, that's as insane gets. Craziness, pure, utter nonsense, craziness. So thank you, Jerry. And I highly recommend, let's just take a quick look on the screen here. Again, the channel is The Lost Gospel, and the video is The Truth About the Daughter of Jesus and Mary Magdalene Finally Revealed. And this is only 21 minutes long, and I've watched it twice. They're giving you truth. They're giving you the truth. If I vet it, it's the truth. So thank you, Jerry. Okay, now let's close that one and let's start with the main event. This is an hour, and it's the best hour that you could ever possibly spend. And as we go through this, I'll pause and I'll connect all the dots, fill everything in here. So you'll, by the end of this, see the wholeness of the truth here. And this video is stunning. It's absolutely stunning detail of people who are powerfully connected to the bloodline and have let this information be leaked to the public. And now it's coming forth. And these are very wonderful, exciting times. Best times ever to be alive. Okay, here we go.
In the year 1969, deep beneath the Basilica of Saint-Maximin-la-Sainte-Baume in southern France, Archaeologists made a discovery that should have changed everything we thought we knew about early Christianity. Inside an ancient marble sarcophagus, they found bones dating to the 1st century, bones that forensic analysis would later confirm belonged to a woman of Middle Eastern origin, approximately 60 years old at the time of death. But this wasn't just any woman. According to documents that had been hidden in the basilica's archives for over 1,000 years, these were the remains of Mary Magdalene herself, and she hadn't come to France alone. The Catholic Church's official position has always been clear. Mary Magdalene was a reformed prostitute, a devoted follower of Jesus, nothing more. But why then do medieval French manuscripts speak of her arrival in Gaul with a young girl named Sarah? Why do noble families throughout Provence and Languedoc carry the surname Magdala, a name that appears in persecution records during the Albigensian Crusade? And why have genetic studies conducted in 2016 on these families revealed DNA markers consistent with 1st century Levantine Jewish ancestry? For 2,000 years, one of Christianity's most explosive secrets has been hiding in plain sight, scattered across French churches, encoded in Gothic cathedral windows, and preserved in the oral traditions of people the Church could never quite silence. The evidence doesn't come from conspiracy theorists or fiction writers. It comes from medieval manuscripts, archaeological excavations, DNA analysis, and historical records that were never meant to see the light of day. What you're about to discover isn't speculation or fantasy. It's the documented truth about what really happened to Mary Magdalene after the crucifixion, the child she brought with her to France, and the bloodline that survived despite centuries of systematic suppression. The story begins not in Jerusalem, but in a small coastal town in southern France, where every year thousands of Romani pilgrims gather to venerate a dark-skinned saint that the Catholic Church has never officially recognized. Her name is Sarah Lacali, Sarah the Black, and according to traditions that predate any written record, she was the servant girl who accompanied Mary Magdalene across the Mediterranean. But medieval documents tell a different story. In manuscripts from the Abbey of Vézelay dating to the 9th century, she's not described as a servant at all. She's called the Egyptian girl, the orphan, and most tellingly, the daughter of the widow. And in the earliest versions of these texts, before church scribes made their corrections, she bears a title that would make any biblical scholar's blood run cold. Sarah, daughter of the tower. In Aramaic, the word for tower is Magdala. Think about
In Aramaic, the word for tower is Magdala. The code, and the church used it, the Roman church used it as well. The code that was used for Mary Magdalene throughout all these years was either the widow or the tower. And again, tower because she is this beacon of light on earth. She was and still is this eternal light of God, this eternal light of truth, of wisdom, of goodness, of righteousness, of kindness, sympathy, empathy, care, compassion. She is the living embodiment of the sacred feminine. So she is the tower. And again, in Aramaic, the word for tower is Magdala. There are no such things as coincidences.
We know from canonical sources, Mary Magdalene was wealthy enough to financially support Jesus' ministry. She was important enough to be mentioned by name in all 4 Gospels, more than most apostles. She was the first witness to the resurrection.
Let me just stop there for a sec before this gets too far along. I've revealed this to you, and you can find it back here on Freak Sense TV. I think it's back on page 21, 22. You can just search it, Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. And it's that show we did about 3-4 years ago on the marriage between Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene, and all of the documents that existed to prove this, and the children and the bloodline. And it was a great show. It was truly a great show. And for those of you who have watched it and know that podcast, what you'll hear almost word for word at times is exactly what I shared with you on that podcast. And it's the same with the other video that Geraldine found, just like literally almost word for word. And it isn't because they're plagiarizing what I said. And you can't plagiarize what I said because it's just an ancient truth that anyone and everyone can come to know. So it's none of that. It's because there's a truth. And when you know the truth, it aligns with others who are telling the truth. We may choose to use some words that are a little different, but the essence is always there because there is one truth. There is a truth in this world. Whatever God is, whatever God created, and on earth here, the duality through the sacred feminine mother, whatever those are, that's the truth. And you can't have an opinion about it. It just is. And that's what science is supposed to be, is the blind observation of what is. And when it repeats itself again and again and again, then we can have laws, scientific laws, because they continually repeat themselves through pure observation. That's all that science is supposed to be, is the pure, objective observation of what is, of the Father, of the Mother, and whatever that is, and occurs again and again and again, day after day. That's the truth. You can't have an opinion on it. It is the truth. All you can do is align to it or become a liar. That's your choice. And the consequences to it are yours as well. Because lies equal death, painful, rotten, horrible, untimely, short life, death. Truth is life. Truth is abundance. Truth is balance. Truth is life. You want to live? Align with the truth. And the truth is all around you in plain sight. You just have to stop judging and turning a blind eye to that which is already out there and within you. Go within and know thyself. And all of this will be revealed to you. But I just wanted to bring that point up. What you're hearing is virtually all the things that I was saying in our original video, which was, like I say, 3, 4, 5, whatever it was, 3 or 4 years ago, on the marriage of Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene. So it's amazing. It's wonderful. It's fantastic, because it means that now you have all sorts of different sources and channels and opportunities to hear things from not just myself. And that's a wonderful, wonderful thing that will slowly continue to grow over time.
A role of supreme theological importance, and then, according to the Church, she simply vanishes from history. No death record, no tomb in Jerusalem, no further mention in the Acts of the Apostles. It's as if one of the most important figures in Christianity just ceased to exist, unless, of course, she didn't vanish at all.
Right. She's there for all of the biggest events. And then suddenly, so she's, her and the mother, the wife and the mother were the only ones who were there front and center at this so-called crucifixion. Again, I've shared my piece on it. I don't like to say too much about it because ultimately we don't know. But what I've shared with you is that I don't believe in the crucifixion, and I think that there is an absolute amazing story when that allegorical aspect of Yeshua just being born again, right, of spirit, 3 days and 3 nights inside the tomb. It's this tomb where he was for 3 days and 3 nights. And then he exploded forth in a blast of light, which is exactly what happens when you activate the pineal gland, which rolls back the fornix on the roof of the third ventricle of your brain, and the optic thalamus fills with the light of God, and you become the light of the world. It's literally what happens. That's literally what they're saying. And it gets turned into a history story. So I don't like to talk too much about it because, again, as I've said to you before, I only want to share with you what I absolutely know as provable truth. And I don't want to share my opinion, because if it's just my opinion and God is not with me on my opinion, then my opinion is as worthful as anybody else's and not worthy. So best that we can say is we'll see, but I don't believe it. I don't believe it. But again, why is this story, and you see it in The Chosen as well, the story for so much of it is dominated by the Mother Mary and then the two other Marys, and until suddenly it's all about John and his bullshit gospel of, Jesus is God, and good Lord, everything just changed after season 3 because they got rid of Angel Studios, which is doing the new movie on the young George Washington, which looks amazing, right? So yeah, that's what we're just dealing with all around us, is just obfuscation of the truth. People, these demons desperately trying to cling to a source of life, but they're done. They're all done. So again, all of this is recorded, and the unison from what they're saying and because there's one truth, one story, and it is truly in plain sight.
Unless she fled. The year would have been around 42 CE, according to the French manuscripts. Jerusalem was becoming increasingly dangerous for followers of Jesus, especially prominent ones. Mary Magdalene, along with her companions, boarded a boat without sails or oars, the legend says. The church claims this was a miraculous journey, divine intervention carrying them across the Mediterranean. But Roman shipping records from Caesarea Maritima, discovered in 1961, tell us something different. They document regular trading vessels departing for Massilia, modern-day Marseille, carrying Jewish refugees fleeing political persecution. The journey took approximately 2 weeks with favorable winds. No miracle required, just money for passage, which Mary Magdalene certainly had.
So again, let me just clarify a few things here. So Mary is also from royal bloodlines. Her mother's family are the just 300 years prior to the events of Yeshua and Mary in the Holy Land. Her mother's family were the ruling kings of Jerusalem, Palestine, but they sat in Jerusalem. So from about 300 BC and going back to about 759 BC to about 300 BC, her mother's family line were the ruling royal family of Palestine, and her father's family has ties. And remember, he was at the time of these events. Her father was the head of the tribe of Benjamin, just as Yeshua would have rightfully have been the head of his line of the 12 tribes of Israel. So you have these two powerful families uniting. And this is not about, you've all been taught the lie that this is all just about the Pharisees and their hatred and their plot to murder Jesus. Again, they were not, they were evil people, yes. And yes, they were plotting to get rid of Yeshua as fast as they could and ensure that there was no record of Mary Magdalene, but they didn't hold power. The Romans did. This bullshit history, the tale that's told is that the Romans were indifferent about Yeshua. Didn't really care, wasn't causing, if they did something, could cause a much bigger problem than by doing something. So they didn't really want to do anything. But again, the Pharisees just became such pains in the butt about all of this that they finally just, Pontius Pilate finally just agreed to go along with these bloodthirsty Cretans of the Temple of the Mount and just get rid of this guy. But they didn't really want to do it. Bullshit. This is purely Rome. It's purely a Roman decision. They saw this as a political move, the union of these two powerful families. The tribe of Judah, Yeshua was the lamb of the tribe of Judah, and the tribe of Benjamin, which is her father's bloodline of Mary Magdalene. And by the way, it went back to Egyptian pharaohs. And as we've been revealing to you, and you're going to hear more and more about this, and I think about 3 weeks or a month's time, we're going to do an entire show on the whole truth of Egypt, the pyramids, and the stonemasons. Going to be just mind-blowing as well, just incredible stuff. And the true purpose of the Great Pyramids of Giza and all the other things that were there that were then destroyed by the Romans. We're gonna unveil all of that for you. But with, again, the Romans, they saw this as a political move to get rid of them, and the unifying of the 12 tribes of Israel through these two most powerful families. The greatest landowners were the tribe of Judah, and they had much wealth in their land, and they were the most venerated of all of the 12 tribes, trusted and sort of revered, and they carried great power. And the tribe of Benjamin was always known for being very, very good with business ventures, and they, without a doubt, held the greatest financial power of all the 12 tribes. They were very, very good, and they supported one another in their economic endeavors. So the Romans saw this union between Yeshua and Mary as politically very, very radical and dangerous. They didn't like what he was teaching in the first place, and they knew all along that the only course of action was to get rid of them and to eliminate any history of this woman, this Mary Magdalene, as well. So again, wake up to the truth. This is about Rome, and fake Romans, who are the fake Jews, who are the fake Freemasons. It's not about these wicked, selfish Temple Mount priests. They were bad, wicked, liars, evil, but they didn't hold any power. It was the Romans. So again, Mary comes from royal bloodline, both of Egypt and the royal bloodline of Palestine itself on both her mother and father's side. So Mary is her family, and Mary was very, very revered. Now, Mary was a master at her art, and Mary's art was of essential oils, of sacred gems, everything to do with the earth. Her family created. They had 2 towers or 2 castles, one in Magdala, which was the basis for their fishing empire, where a lot of money came from. And then they had the castle in Bethany, and that's where they did the female line did their basically healing business that they did. So essential oils and tinctures and all of these natural, incredible medicines. Again, essential oils, but rubs and wraps, everything that was healed. And by the way, with this union between Yeshua and Mary, Yeshua was blessing everything that they were physically creating, giving it just incredible powers, which was becoming an enormous problem for everyone, obviously the Pharisees of the church, but for the Romans as well. There were so many reasons for the ruling powers in Palestine to absolutely fear and hate the union between Yeshua and Mary, because it's the union of the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, which was great wealth and great power. So yes, Mary did come from great wealth, great power, great respect. Yeshua came from the ultimate line of landowners and physical land wealth and great respect. And they represented a union that shook the very core of Rome. Never, ever forget that. Don't let anyone ever attempt to tell you differently.
Examine the landing site, Sainte-Marie de la Mer, the evidence becomes even more compelling. This tiny fishing village has inexplicably been a major pilgrimage site since at least the 4th century, predating any official church recognition. Archaeological excavations in 1978 uncovered a 1st century Jewish ritual bath, a mikveh, beneath the church. Carbon dating confirmed its age, and its construction matches exactly the style used in Jerusalem during the Second Temple period. Someone with intimate knowledge of Jewish purification rituals built this bath. Someone who had lived in Jerusalem and maintained Jewish customs even in exile. But it's the medieval documents that truly break this story open. In the archives of the Bibliothèque Nationale de France, there exists a genealogical manuscript from 1244, just before the siege of Montségur during the Albigensian Crusade. This document, written by Pierre de Vaux de Cernay, lists the noble families of Languedoc that the Inquisition considered heretical. Among them repeatedly appears the surname Magdala, sometimes spelled Migdal or Magdalena. These families, the document states, claimed descent from the Holy Woman of the Tower and possessed the blood of the true vine. The Inquisition's response was swift and brutal.
The blood,
every
the
family
woman,
bearing
the tower, in Aramaic, tower is Magdala, the woman of the nectar or blood of the true vine. Yes. The blood of the cup of Christ. Yes. Truth in plain sight everywhere. If you simply open your eyes to all of this historical documentation that has existed since that time and has been obfuscated. And of course, people don't talk about it because if you do, you get excommunicated from the church, you lose your friends and neighbors. And that's what the Romans are, bullies, bully. Do what we say or else. And remember, in this day and age, you can't just kill people openly. You can secretly kill them, but what they became very good at are economic hitmen, and they destroyed people who would not shut up about the truth in ways that, in many instances, people would probably rather have preferred that they had just killed them.
This name was marked for extermination. Their lands were seized, their castles destroyed, their records burned. Almost overnight, the surname Magdala disappeared from southern France. Almost. The Cathars, those mysterious Christian mystics who controlled much of southern France until the church destroyed them, preserved a different version of Christianity. In their sacred texts, discovered hidden in cave walls near Montségur in 1929, they speak of Jesus not as a celibate divine being, but as a teacher who planted his seed in the garden of the beloved. By the way,
and they don't say Jesus, they say Yeshua. And there's also references of Isa And remember, Isa, Sanskrit, means the bringer of salvation. What does Yeshua mean in Hebrew? It means the bringer of salvation. So ultimately, Isa and Yeshua mean the exact same thing. So it didn't say Jesus. It couldn't, because the letter J didn't exist. And if people don't wake up to that one, my goodness, I mean, my absolute goodness. If you really claim to love this figure, you might want to show enough respect to get his name right. But it's not easy to do. It's not easy to do. I just reposted today on X my great post about his true name and why they removed Yehoshua and Yeshua and changed it to this J Jesus. Read that post. It tells you everything you need to know. And it's disgusting. It's wicked and it's evil. So this bloodline crossed the water to the south of France, and all of the physical records that are there bear all of this. It bears all of this. And that's why it's never gone away. And now it's reaching epic proportions. In 2024, last year, at the caves on the coast of the Cape de la Mer, on the Mediterranean, the south of France, in the Languedoc region, that was the largest turnout that they can ever remember for the annual event of Mary, potentially Yeshua and Mary, arriving to Europe. And we already know that the trading routes from Jerusalem to Marseille were already in existence. And just like I said on the show that we did, they were only on a good and worthy vessel, was only about 2 weeks to cross from the coast of Phoenicia to the south of France. And remember, what I also told you is that legends tell that it was a mastless and oarless little vessel. No, it wasn't. You're talking about a wealthy family and a plan that was laid out long in advance, because they were never going to put the children at risk. They were never going to put their own children at risk. This plan was well laid out. And a huge architect of this plan, which is why Lazarus is playing such a huge role, as are Martha and Mary in The Chosen. That's why, remember, in the Bible, it's just a paragraph of information, and it's dominated the first 3 seasons of The Chosen until Angel Studios got booted out. And now it's all about the Gospel of John. But in those first 3 seasons, wow, truth. And so much about Lazarus and his sisters, Martha and Mary, and there was Marie as well. And so Lazarus had well in advance purchased a very good sized and in excellent condition sea vessel for this crossing. And it wasn't just Yeshua, Mary, Lazarus, and their family, and just a few others. No. In the movie with Joaquin Phoenix as Yeshua and Rooney Mara as Mary Magdalene, that great movie, I think 2017, 2018. Great movie of truth. They don't say in the movie that they were married, because they didn't have the time at all. Everything happened so fast in the movie, but they showed you in plain sight that they were married and very much in love and committed to one another. But in that movie, they're showing so many of these aspects, and they showed that Yeshua and Mary freed so many women of Palestine, and in particular in the north, that were just abused by their families, by their fathers, by their husbands, and that they didn't want any of this any longer, and that they were literally militant. They were so angry with how they had just been disenfranchised to nothingness, and that these women flocked to the teachings and the movements of Yeshua and Mary, and wherever they went, they went. But none of that's in the Bible. This vanguard of 300 to 500 real Jewish women of Palestine, of the Holy Land, following them around. That part got erased out of the Bible, but that was very, very powerfully true. And they showed that to you in the movie. They all left. They went. It wasn't as if it was just 6 or 7 people and they all had, cloaks over them to hide them. You're talking about the greatest man who's ever lived, and quite likely the greatest woman who's ever lived, bringing their bloodline from the death and decay of what Jerusalem had become to Europe. And then that bloodline, as you're going to find throughout the show tonight, spread. It just south of France, and then central France, and then all of France, and then all of Europe, and the Middle East, and across into Asia, and eventually every single nation on the earth. And of course, the bloodline came to the New World. Again, you're going to find out next week. It wasn't Christopher, and Christopher Columbus was a Knights Templar. Christopher Columbus is a goodly, godly man. He wasn't murdering all these natives and all these things he's accused of. But the Knights Templar had long been and making friends with the natives in the Americas long before Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492, long before. And we're going to show you next week that the largest fleet in the world and the most modernized, best fleet in the world was controlled by the Knights Templar. But when they fled, when they were all killed, and the Catholic Church and King Philip of France were looking for all these vessels to add them to their navy, or to create a navy, they couldn't find them. They were gone. Because they crossed the high seas, because they had already crossed the high seas and had already begun. And that's when the Templar treasure, and remember, the ultimate Templar treasure are these manuscripts, documents, papyrus papers outlining the true teachings of Yeshua and Mary and the ancients, going all the way back to Atlantis. Those are the true treasures. But all of the physical treasure and the gold that everybody wants, the gold and the silver and jewels, all of that was taken across on these vessels. And this was all done prior to Friday, October 13, 1307. This has been a brilliant plan laid out long in advance of the enemy's action. So they didn't hide and meekly come across the Mediterranean, Yeshua and Mary, as the Lord and the Lady came proudly across the Mediterranean with their bloodline to spread it across Europe and then the entire world, in every single country, every single nation on earth. Exciting stuff. Just amazing stuff. So I just wanted to add that in as well. So just keep listening, enjoying pure truth.
Mary Magdalene not as a reformed sinner, but as the bearer of the bloodline, the mother of the living waters. And they died rather than renounce these beliefs. Hundreds of them were burned alive at Montségur in 1244, singing hymns as the flames consumed them. What truth was worth such a sacrifice? The Catholic Church's campaign to erase Mary Magdalene's true significance began early. In 591 CE, Pope Gregory I delivered a sermon that would define her for the next 400 years. He declared that Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, and the unnamed sinful woman in Luke's Gospel were all the same person. This had no basis
See
in
that?
Scripture.
You see that? You
No
see that?
support.
Again, just proving what I've always taught you, what I've always said, that Mary of Bethany, who was linked to this reformed prostitute named Mary, and allegedly who was from Magdala. That's not true. But again, this, and it was all created by Pope Gregory in 591, Anno Domini. So, and that was at the Council of Rome, and it's just utter nonsense and utter horseshit as well. Let me just go back. Yes, and by the way, and this destruction of the Cathars, which largely occurred at Monseigneur in 1244, was the last straw for the Knights Templar, knowing that the Vatican and the Pope simply were not redeemable, they were not controllable, and that they needed to be removed. And so it was this organized Cathar destruction by the popes and the Vatican that led to the attempts of the Knights Templar to reform the church to a living embodiment of the teachings of Yeshua and Mary. And remember, they had everything when they went to Palestine, when they were allowed to stay in the Temple of the Mount. When they went back for the Crusades, they got all of the documentation, all of physical provable items from that period, DNA, everything. And when they brought it all back and presented it to the Pope, there was nothing that the Vatican could say in response to the Templar Knights, because based on all of the evidence that they had and would not hand over to the Vatican, meant that they were owned, meant that the Roman Church was now being overseen by and controlled by the Knights Templar, because they held the power, because they held the truth, and they had the proof of the truth. So the only thing that they could do was to launch this plan in conjunction with Philip IV, who was massively in debt to not just the Templar Knights, but a host of others, because after a short while, the Templar Knights cut Philip IV of France. They cut him off of any help whatsoever. So, but it was an organized plan to get rid of the Templar and attempt to steal all of their wealth, which they desperately needed, destroy all of the banking notes that they desperately needed to destroy, and to destroy all of these proofs, documents, DNA of Mary Magdalene, of Yeshua, of the bloodline. And it was just all-out war. It was. So you need to understand, we'll go over this again next Saturday as well, but the event of the Cathar destruction, 1244, Monseigneur, is very significant because this was the point of no return. It was all-out war. And this is the exact same war that President Trump found himself being asked to play such a huge role through the 70s and the 80s and the takedown of the Canaanites. This exact same war. So everything came to this point in history. 1244 is that point. There's no going back. The battle lines were drawn, and the Templar Knights knew that because the Roman Church had 1,000-year head start on them and had all of these different nations controlled by figures within the church, which are these bishops, in each of these countries were manipulating and controlling all of these different nations. The Templar Knights knew that there's no other choice or alternative. They had to go underground, which is what Lincoln did, which is what Kennedy did. It's this going underground because now you don't have to play by their rules and you're not limited by their media destroying you in the press, and you're now able to hide behind the veil and attack the way that you need to attack to destroy this evil from the earth. So this is a huge event. The destruction of the Cathars, and remember, the Templar Knights were busy not with trying to fight this battle, because eventually the Catholic Church, knowing that the Templar Knights would have been there, sent a force of about 60,000 mercenaries to Montségur to be able to destroy the Cathars. What the Templar Knights did is that they were funneling out the Cathars and hiding them, and that what was left in the end was only a fraction of the Cathars. So again, the Cathars were all destroyed in 1244, and then by 1307, between 1307 and 1314, all of the Templar Knights were destroyed. No. You're talking about the white hats. You're talking about those who are with God. You were talking about the wise. They had a plan. They were playing 5D chess against these two-dimensional monsters, and they were always 3 steps ahead. And so again, when it's a horrible tragedy, and it absolutely is, but the vast majority of the Cathars were saved by the Templar Knights. They were brought into hiding, and they became the basis to what became known as the Priory of Sion. And miracle of miracles, what did the Priory of Sion do? The Priory of Sion took on the protection of this bloodline, and the collection and safe storage of all of the records, all of the DNA, and of course the sarcophagus of the Magdalene herself. And for that matter, very likely Yeshua himself, and that no one ever found it because no one ever could, because it was protected far more than just by the Priory of Sion or the Knights Templar. It was protected by God. So there's been a plan. Have faith. That's what we've always asked of you. Don't sink into despair. Don't believe all of the lies. Don't believe that evil and darkness and wickedness will rule the day. It won't. This is God's creation, and God is good. So there's been a plan. We've won. And this is the story of how we won. So most of the Cathars were saved by the Templar Knights. And what they did for the Cathar Knights, putting them behind the scenes, behind the veil, and the Cathars becoming the Priory of Sion, is what the Knights Templar did just 60 years later, in this case 63 years later, themselves. Come to get us, you catch a few. Over time, the Romans tell you they caught all of them because they like to lie, but they didn't. And they didn't find the vessels, and they didn't find the treasure. They didn't find the documents. They didn't find the DNA because they were outsmarted by the Templar Knights. Okay, so more good news here. Let's continue.
4. Singing hymns as the flames consumed them. What truth was worth such a sacrifice? The Catholic Church's campaign to erase Mary Magdalene's true significance began early. In 591 CE, Pope Gregory I delivered a sermon that would define her for the next 400 years. He declared that Mary Magdalene, Mary of Bethany, and the unnamed sinful woman in Luke's Gospel were all the same person. This had no basis in Scripture, no support from early Christian writings. It was a deliberate conflation designed to transform one of Christianity's most important figures into a reformed prostitute. The Eastern Orthodox Church never accepted this interpretation, neither did the Coptic Christians of Egypt. Only in 1969, the same year those bones were discovered in Saint Maximin, did the Catholic Church quietly admit that Pope Gregory had been wrong, but by then, the damage was done. Mary Magdalene's true identity had been buried under centuries of deliberate mischaracterization. Let's examine what the Gnostic Gospels, discovered at Nag Hammadi in 1945, tell us about Mary Magdalene. These texts, hidden in the Egyptian desert since the 4th century, predate many of our canonical New Testament manuscripts. In the Gospel of Philip, we find this explosive passage. The Savior loved Mary Magdalene more than all the disciples and used to kiss her often on the mouth. The rest of the disciples were offended by it and expressed disapproval. They said to him, "Why do you love her more than all of us?" The word used for loved here is not agape, spiritual love, or phileo, brotherly love.
And
It's
remember, I
koinonos.
have a digital copy of the original Bible in Greek, and the word absolutely is koinonos, and koinonos is a marital, but it's even more than that. It's a marital love, but it's like an eternal spiritual bond love. Koinonos is not sex. It's not infatuation. It is a unification of man and woman into like so many of you are working toward, like Colleen and I have managed to create with ourselves, is this bond that cannot be broken, cannot be severed.
A Greek word that literally means partner or companion, and was commonly used to describe sexual and marital relationships. The Gospel of Mary, an even earlier text, goes further. In it, Mary Magdalene is portrayed as the one disciple who truly understood Jesus' teachings, the one to whom he revealed mysteries hidden from the others. Peter's jealousy is explicit. Did he really speak privately to a woman rather than to us? Are we to turn about and all listen to her? Did he prefer her to us? Levi responds, "If the Savior made her worthy, who are you indeed to reject her? Surely the Savior knows her very well. That is why he loved her more than us." These aren't later fabrications or medieval fantasies. These are 1st and 2nd century texts, written by people who were closer to the actual events than the authors of our canonical Gospels. And they paint a picture of Mary Magdalene that is radically different from the one the Church has promoted. She wasn't a follower. She was the favorite. She wasn't a reformed sinner. She was the one who understood. And if the Gnostic texts are to be believed, she was something more. She was the Savior's companion, his partner, his beloved. The French traditions about Sarah take on new meaning in this context. In the legends of Sainte Marie de la Mer, Sarah is described as having dark skin, leading many to assume she was Egyptian or Ethiopian. But there's another possibility. In ancient Jewish culture, children of mixed parentage were often described by their darker features. If Sarah was the daughter of a Jewish mother and a father whose ancestry included the diverse populations of Galilee, she might well have had darker skin than typical for a purely Jewish child. The Romani people, who have venerated Sarah Lacali for over 1,000 years, have an oral tradition that she was the daughter of the blessed couple, born of a union between the prophet and the tower woman. The surname evidence deserves closer
the prophet and the tower woman. Oh my God, right? In 1,000 years to that point, who was the prophet and who was the tower woman? And it's important for you to know. Let me just go back just a little bit here, because this is important to clarify. So
for over 1,000.
Sarah Lacali, or Sarah the Black, is not because her skin was black, although Mary Magdalene's father and his line which are the Benjamins, did have darker skin because they could trace their lineage back to the pharaohs of Egypt. And so some of them did have darker skin, but that wasn't the case. I just want to make this very, very clear to you. That wasn't the case with Mary. The reason why Mary Magdalene became known in France as the Black Madonna, the reason for the name Sarah Lacali, Sarah the Black, is because blackness for the French in Latin simply means obfuscated. So the Black Madonna that was created for Mary Magdalene, and it could be explained away as something else, maybe Mother Mary. And it's why in the Renaissance, inspired by Da Vinci himself, so many painters painted, Madonna and Child. And again, so many historians have just simply accepted this as paintings of Mother Mary with the baby Jesus, but it wasn't. It was Mary Magdalene with the very first bloodline in plain sight everywhere in the Louvre, everywhere across Europe and the world, is this painting of Mary Magdalene and the first of the bloodline between her and Yeshua, right in the faces of the Roman Church. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. That happened a lot. So when you hear Mary Magdalene, the Black Madonna, she had to be hidden. Everything was hidden. The church, the Roman Church, lied, hid her, and the bloodline, for protection, kept all of this a secret as well. And they've kept this top secret. It really is. And remember, when we did that podcast 3-4 years ago, we lost a lot of people again, because even just 3-4 years ago, people were not prepared to hear this truth. But now they are. Suddenly they are. Suddenly those seeds that we helped to plant are taking root in a lot of people, and people are waking up. What I love is how many of you and how many of these newer people that have come to us are all realizing that blood is spirit, and that if we have that divine spirit within us, and that if we are righteous and of the vibration of Yeshua and Mary, of goodness and kindness, then that becomes our blood, and that we hold the blood of Yeshua and Mary and the bloodline within us as well. And it's completely true. And I'm so proud of each and every one of you, especially those who literally have been with us for, like I say, 9 years now, because we've not made this easy on you. Although we've tried to go in as many little steps as possible, this has not been easy, because it just seems like we've just gone through one crisis with this truth to the next crisis and this truth, and it just becomes tiresome after a while of constantly being attacked and attacked and attacked by everyone around you within this community and your family as well. So again, the great honor is with all of you for having the strength and the wisdom and the courage to know that this was the truth and to stick with it all this time. And the dharma that is coming, the rewards that are coming from God directly to each of you, are greater than I could possibly even begin to share with you, because you've been part of the unveiling of this truth. Just think, for 2,000 years, these horrible, horrible, horrible lies about Mary Magdalene, the obfuscation of Mary Magdalene and the bloodline of Yeshua and Mary, and then the complete upside down, backward teachings accredited to this Jesus figure who never existed. Yeshua did, but can't have him. And you can't have Mary. So welcome to this upside down bullshit world. So Black, Sarah Lacali, and the Black Madonna because they've been obfuscated and hidden in the darkness. And now you're part of this reawakening, this divine, beautiful story and truth. You are part of the architects of this cleansing of darkness and evil for the last 2,000 years. And I love each and every one of you because I love all of you with all of my heart, and I love Yeshua and Mary with all of my heart.
Years have an oral tradition that she was the daughter of the blessed couple, born of a union between the prophet and the tower woman. The surname evidence deserves closer scrutiny. In the Archives départementales de l'Aude, there are tax records from the 12th century listing property owners in the region around Rennes-le-Château. The name Magdala appears 17 times. These were not poor peasants, but wealthy landowners, people with castles and vast estates. The records show they intermarried with other noble families, creating a network of blood relations throughout Languedoc. During the Albigensian Crusade, the Inquisition paid special attention to these families. The charge against them wasn't just heresy, it was something more specific. They were accused of maintaining the bloodline of the pretender, of preserving the seed of the false vine. What did the Inquisition know that made these families so dangerous? In the Vatican Secret Archives, open to researchers only in 2019, there's a document from Pope Innocent III, dated 1209, just before he launched the Albigensian Crusade. In it, he warns his generals about those who claim descent from the Magdalene woman and instructs them that the seed must be destroyed root and branch. This isn't metaphorical language. This is a papal order for genealogical genocide. The pattern of virgin black statues across France provides another piece of the puzzle. There are over 180 of these mysterious figures, dark-skinned Madonnas holding infants, concentrated in a specific geographical pattern. When mapped, they form a route from Sainte-Marie-de-la-Mer through the Languedoc region to the Pyrenees. This is exactly the path that tradition says Mary Magdalene took when she fled inland from the coast. But these aren't typical Madonna and child figures. They lack the traditional iconography of the Virgin Mary. No crown of stars, no moon beneath their feet, no blue robes. Instead, they often wear red, the color associated with Mary Magdalene. Many hold not the infant Jesus but a young girl child, and they're found almost exclusively in areas that were Cathar strongholds before the Crusade. The Knights Templar, those warrior monks who supposedly protected pilgrims, had a curious obsession with Mary Magdalene. In their churches and commanderies across Europe, she appears more frequently than any saint, except John the Baptist. At their headquarters in Jerusalem, archaeological excavations in 2007 uncovered a hidden chamber containing a fresco of Mary Magdalene holding a child, not witnessing the resurrection, not at the foot of the cross, but holding a child. The image had been deliberately defaced, the child's face chiseled away, but enough remains to see that this was once a devotional image of supreme importance. When the Templars were arrested on October 13, 1307, one of the charges against them was that they worshipped a female figure and claimed to possess the true blood of Christ. Under torture, several knights confessed that they believed Mary Magdalene was the wife of Jesus and that their order protected her descendants. The Church dismissed these confessions as heretical fantasies. But why would men facing death invent such a specific and dangerous lie? What did they gain by maintaining this story even as they burned at the stake? The Cathedral of Chartres holds perhaps the most compelling evidence. Built in the 12th century on a site sacred to the Black Madonna, its windows contain a series of panels depicting the life of Mary Magdalene. But these aren't the standard scenes from the Gospels. In one panel, she's shown boarding a boat with a small child. In another, she's depicted teaching a group of followers in what appears to be a cave, with a young girl at her side. The Guild of Stonemasons who built the cathedral left their own record. In the crypt, hidden behind a pillar, they carved an inscription. Here lies the secret of the tower.
Hay una situación de hambre extrema. Hola, soy Sonia Silva, soy jefa de oficina de UNICEF.
Magdala means tower. The grotto standard scenes from the Gospels. In one panel, followers in what appears to be a cave, with a young girl at her side. The guild of stonemasons who built the cathedral left their own record. In the crypt, hidden behind a pillar, they carved an inscription. Here lies the secret of the tower. Magdala means tower. The grotto of Saint Baume, where tradition says Mary Magdalene spent her final years, has been excavated multiple times. In 1279, Charles II of Anjou claimed to have found her bones there. In 1969, those bones were subjected to scientific analysis. The results were stunning. Carbon dating placed them in the 1st century CE. Chemical analysis of the bones showed traces of myrrh and aloes, spices used in Jewish burial customs of that period. DNA extraction, though limited by the age of the samples, revealed mitochondrial markers consistent with Levantine Jewish ancestry. These weren't medieval forgeries. These were the actual remains of a 1st century Jewish woman who had been buried with expensive spices, just as the Gospels describe Mary Magdalene preparing to do for Jesus. But there's more. In the same cave system, archaeologists found evidence of continuous habitation from the 1st century through the medieval period. They discovered Jewish ritual objects, menorahs and mezuzahs dating from the 1st and 2nd centuries. They found children's toys carved from olive wood, a wood not native to France but common in Palestine. And they found something extraordinary, a small limestone ossuary, a bone box, inscribed with a single word in Aramaic, Sarah. The DNA evidence from modern families deserves special attention. In 2016, a genetic study was conducted on 17 families from southern France who claimed descent from Mary Magdalene. These families had maintained this tradition for centuries, despite the danger it posed during the Inquisition. The study, published in the European Journal of Human Genetics, found something remarkable. All 17 families shared specific mitochondrial DNA markers that traced back to a common female ancestor. The haplogroup, K1A1B1A, is found almost exclusively in populations of ancient Jewish origin. More specifically, it's concentrated in families that trace their ancestry to 1st century Judea. The mathematical probability of 17 unrelated families sharing this specific genetic marker by chance is less than 1 in 10 million. These families are related. They share a common female ancestor, and that ancestor was a Jewish woman from 1st century Palestine. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from an unexpected source, the Merovingian kings of France. This dynasty, which ruled from the 5th to the 8th centuries, claimed a divine bloodline. They wore their hair long, never cutting it, in accordance with Jewish Nazirite vows. They claimed descent from the tribe of Benjamin.
And again, who were the Jewish Nazarenes? Yeshua and Mary.
Same tribe that Paul of Tarsus belonged to. And they used a curious symbol, a fish, not the Christian ichthys, but specifically a fish passing through a water gate, a symbol that appears in Jewish mysticism, representing the passage of royal blood through the feminine principle. The Merovingians were overthrown by the Carolingians with the explicit support of the Catholic Church. The official reason was their incompetence as rulers, but documents from the period tell a different story. Pope Zachary, who authorized their removal, wrote that the Merovingians were tainted by ancient blood and practiced customs abhorrent to Christian faith. What customs? What blood? The answers might lie in a document discovered in the Vatican archives in 2019, a letter from Bishop Arnulf of Metz, dated 623 CE. In it, he warns the Pope about King Dagobert II's claim to possess the blood of the Redeemer through the female line. The female line. In Jewish tradition, religious identity passes through the mother. If Jesus and Mary Magdalene had a daughter, she would have been fully Jewish, carrying both the royal bloodline of David and the priestly lineage through her mother. This child, Sarah, would have been the living continuation of both hereditary claims to Jewish leadership. No wonder she had to be hidden. No wonder her descendants were hunted. They represented a direct challenge, not just to the Church's theology, but to its very authority. The Gospel of Philip contains a passage that has puzzled scholars for decades. Great is the mystery of marriage, for without it, the world would not exist. Now the existence of the world depends on man, and the existence of man on marriage. Think of the undefiled relationship, for it possesses a mighty power. Its image consists of a defilement of the form. This isn't about marriage in general. It's about a specific marriage, one that had to be hidden, defiled in form to protect it. The Gnostics were telling us, in their cryptic way, that the union of Jesus and Mary Magdalene was the foundation of their faith. The Cathars believed this explicitly. In their sacred text, the Book of the Two Principles, discovered in 1939, they write, "The pure blood flows through time like a hidden river, surfacing only when the world is ready to receive it. The daughter of Zion, the Magdalene, carries the water of life in her womb, and from her flows the true vine that will restore the vineyard of the Lord." This isn't metaphorical language about the church. This is a biological claim about bloodline preservation. The French nobility knew this secret. It's why so many noble families claim descent from Mary Magdalene despite the danger. The Counts of Toulouse, the Lords of Bézieux, the Viscounts of Béziers, all traced their lineage back to the Lady of the Tower. When Simon de Montfort massacred the inhabitants of Béziers in 1209, killing over 20,000 people, he reportedly said, "Kill them all. God will know his own." But papal records reveal his actual orders were more specific. Eliminate the seed of the widow. The architectural evidence in Gothic cathedrals is overwhelming once you know what to look for. At Notre Dame de Paris, before the 2019 fire, there was a series of carvings showing the life of Mary Magdalene. In the final panel, now destroyed, she was depicted ascending to heaven, accompanied by a young woman. Art historians had always assumed this was an angel, but medieval descriptions of the carving call her the daughter ascending with the mother. At Vézelay, the tympanum shows Christ transmitting spiritual power to the apostles. But look closely, and you'll see a female figure standing beside him, her hand on his shoulder, and at her feet, almost hidden in the decorative foliage, a small child. The famous painting by Leonardo da Vinci, The Last Supper, has been analyzed endlessly for its supposed codes and secrets, but one detail is rarely discussed. The figure to Jesus' right, traditionally identified as John, is wearing clothes that mirror Mary Magdalene's traditional iconography, a red robe and blue cloak. And if you look at the negative space between this figure and Jesus, it forms a perfect V, the ancient symbol for the feminine, the womb, the vessel. Leonardo, who had access to Vatican archives and was known for encoding dangerous knowledge in his works, might have been telling us something the Church didn't want known. The Order of Sion, whether medieval or modern, claims to protect the bloodline of Mary Magdalene. Documents allegedly from this order, while controversial, align perfectly with verifiable historical records. They speak of the vine of Sarah and the Magdalene inheritance being preserved through strategic marriages among European nobility. They claim that the bloodline survived through the Dark Ages by hiding in plain sight, its carriers taking positions of power while never revealing their true heritage. Fantasy? Perhaps. But why do so many noble genealogies show mysterious gaps and insertions precisely where these documents claim the bloodline was hidden? The genetic evidence keeps mounting. In 2018, a study of European Jewish populations found that certain families in southern France carried genetic markers that were otherwise found only in ancient Judean populations. These families, centered in the old Cathar regions, showed no evidence of recent Middle Eastern ancestry. Their Jewish genetic markers had to have arrived in France nearly 2,000 years ago. The researchers publishing in Nature Genetics couldn't explain this anomaly, but the explanation might be simpler than they think. These could be the descendants of a first-century Jewish refugee and her daughter. The Church's reaction to these discoveries has been telling. In 2003, when Dan Brown's novel brought these theories to popular attention, the Vatican's response was swift and unprecedented. Cardinal Tarcisio Bertone, then Secretary of State, called a press conference to denounce not just the novel, but the very idea that Jesus could have been married. Why such vehemence about a work of fiction? Unless, of course, the fiction was getting too close to fact. The Church launched a massive publicity campaign, spending millions to refute claims about Mary Magdalene and any possible bloodline. They wouldn't have bothered if there was nothing to hide.
Give yourself 28 days and become the most dangerous person in the room. Let's be real. Most people
Even more revealing was the Church's response to the 2016 genetic studies. The Vatican immediately questioned the methodology, the sample size, the conclusions. They funded their own studies, which surprisingly were never published. They pressured academic journals to retract or qualify the original papers, and they issued new guidelines restricting access to church archives regarding Mary Magdalene and early French Christianity. If there's nothing to hide, why the cover-up? The Magdalene legacy, as some researchers call it, extends beyond bloodlines to spiritual authority. If Mary Magdalene was indeed the wife of Jesus and the mother of his child, she would have been the natural leader of the early Christian movement after his death. This explains the hostility toward her in the canonical Gospels, written decades later by men who had taken control of the church. It explains why she had to be diminished, sexualized, marginalized. She represented a competing claim to Christian authority, one based not on apostolic succession, but on family inheritance. The Cathars understood this. They allowed women to be perfecti, their highest spiritual rank, because they believed spiritual authority could pass through the female line. They revered Mary Magdalene as co-redemptrix, equal to Christ in the salvation story, and they believed that somewhere in their lands lived her descendants, carrying not just royal blood, but spiritual authority that superseded Rome's claims. This is why they had to be destroyed so completely. Not just killed, but erased from history. The treasure of Rennes-le-Château, that mysterious wealth that allowed a poor parish priest to renovate his church and build a massive estate, might not have been gold or jewels. Father Béranger Saunier's notebooks, discovered in 1953, contain genealogical charts tracing local families back centuries. He was mapping bloodlines, following the Magdalene descent through the complex intermarriages of Languedoc nobility. His sudden wealth came from the Vatican, payment for his silence about what he had discovered. The church bought his cooperation, but they couldn't buy his conscience. Above the door of his church, he inscribed, "This place is terrible." What terrible truth had he uncovered? The modern implications are staggering. If the bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene survived, their descendants walk among us today. They might not even know their heritage, the secret having been buried under centuries of denial and persecution. But the DNA doesn't lie. The genetic markers are there, waiting to be discovered. The 2016 study identified 17 families, but there could be hundreds, thousands, carrying the genetic legacy of first-century Judean refugees. Some researchers have suggested that the Church's celibacy requirement, instituted in the 11th century,
There could be hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, potentially millions, because this bloodline needed to spread to every single part of this world and every unique aspect of our humanity.
was directly related to the Magdalene bloodline. By preventing priests from marrying and having legitimate children, the Church ensured that no one could claim spiritual authority through biological descent. The timing is suspicious. The celibacy requirement was enforced most strictly in southern France, exactly where the Magdalene traditions were strongest. It was a genealogical firewall, preventing any possible claimants from emerging within the church hierarchy.
And again, who would have orchestrated that? One of the tenets of the Judean religious traditions was that all of the Pharisees were expected to marry. It was one of the main central tenets of the Nazarenes, Yeshua and Mary, and their teachings of the divinity of marriage and how it completed the divinity and of the sacred feminine completed the masculine, so that he wasn't a raging ego bull, and that it was absolutely essential. So all of these traditions, everything that's being said here is supported by everything that has occurred. So again, this Roman Catholic Church completely severs any connections to the Judea traditions of allegedly of what it grew out of anytime it sees fit to, because it's just a pack of lies. They'll say and they'll do whatever they need to do to be able to distance themselves from the true teachings of Yeshua and the necessary obfuscation of Mary Magdalene. So that's what we're dealing with here, is just endless lies to be able to ensure that these truths never found the light of day. And just going back a little bit on this, let me say that I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever that Madonna is of the bloodline. And that's why she so often created that image of herself. She's always come back to it, but especially in the beginning of the Black Madonna, that's truth in plain sight, but only for those who have the eye to see it. She's putting that truth in plain sight, those gorgeous children of hers through Guy Ritchie, who just seems to have this passion for doing movies that essentially are either directly about the Knights Templar or continually celebrate the tenets of the Knights Templar. Very, very interesting, wouldn't you say? So there have been many examples. Where is the best place to hide the truth? It's always been in plain sight, because people simply won't believe it. They'll just dismiss it and write it off. So it's been there, and it will continue to be there. Yeah, well, everyone's going to know.
The role of the Priory of Sion, whether ancient or modern fabrication, points to a real historical pattern. Secret societies throughout European history have claimed to protect the Magdalene bloodline. The Templars, the Cathars, the Rosicrucians, certain Masonic lodges. Even if these specific organizations didn't exist as claimed, the pattern of belief is real. For centuries, groups have risked everything to preserve what they believed was the biological legacy of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. Why would so many independent groups share this same dangerous secret unless there was truth behind it? The Ethiopian Orthodox Church provides an interesting parallel. They possess ancient texts that the Western Church considers apocryphal, including books that speak of Jesus' family life. In the Ethiopian Book of the Bee, written in the 13th century, but based on much older sources, there's a passage about the children of the Anointed One who fled to the lands of the sunset. Ethiopia maintained contact with European Christianity through the Templars, who had a presence in Jerusalem. Did they share knowledge about the Magdalene bloodline? Is this why Templar churches so often feature Ethiopian saints and symbols? The transformation of Mary Magdalene from apostle to prostitute wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate campaign of character assassination designed to eliminate her as a threat to papal authority. But the truth has a way of surfacing. The Nag Hammadi texts, hidden for 1,600 years, emerged just as the world was ready to reconsider women's roles in religion. The Dead Sea Scrolls, providing context for first-century Jewish marriage customs, were discovered just as scholars began questioning Christ's supposed celibacy. The genetic studies became possible just as the Church's authority was weakening enough to allow such research. It's as if history itself conspires to reveal what was hidden.
And again, let's just go back over that point again. One of these massive changes of the Roman version of, and the creation of this Roman Christianity versus the truth of Yeshua is the celibacy of priests, which was never the case with the Judean tradition of these religious archetypal figures that they were expected to marry. But in the Roman version, they had to become celibate, which then created this massive problem of buggery, which they knew would have been the consequence, but they don't care because they're monsters, because Rome is fake Rome, SPQR is fake Rome, and these are the Canaanites, the literal monsters of the earth. They don't care. They don't have conscience, and they are looking to create these wicked side effects. So again, this celibacy of the priest works for them on so many sinister, dark levels. it's disgusting. But what it does is it prevented the bloodline from infiltrating into Roman Catholicism and then essentially breeding their way to take control or to take over Roman Catholicism from within. That's the reason. There is no other reason. That is the reason. It is yet another Roman political move to protect their buggery, which is them, and their buggery of lies, which they needed to protect at all costs, so that the bloodline of Yeshua and Mary could not infiltrate into their very order through the priesthood. And then they're purposely choosing priests that they felt could not control their sexual urges and putting them in dark, lonely places surrounded by women and children.
The grave of Mary Magdalene at Saint-Baume holds one final secret. In the deepest part of the cave, accessible only by crawling through a narrow passage, there's a natural formation that resembles a throne. Local tradition, dating back to the Merovingians, claims this was where Mary Magdalene held court, teaching her followers and, according to some accounts, presenting her daughter as her spiritual heir. In 2007, ground-penetrating radar revealed a hidden chamber behind this formation. The French government immediately classified the site as archaeologically sensitive and banned further exploration. What lies behind that wall? What discovery would be so explosive that even secular authorities fear its revelation? The pattern is clear for those willing to see it. Mary Magdalene fled to France with a child. That child, Sarah, carried the bloodline of Jesus. Her descendants intermarried with local nobility, creating a hidden royal line that survived centuries of persecution. The Cathars knew this secret and died to protect it. The
Wouldn't you? The Cathars, the Merovingians married into it, and they died to keep the secret. And again, by the way, the pattern of the Merovingians not being completely destroyed and wiped out, but going undercover is exactly what happened with the Merovingians as well. So again, but wouldn't you? The Merovingians did, the Cathars did, the Knights Templars did, the Rosicrucians did, and the Freemasons did. They're all willing. Wouldn't you be willing to risk everything to protect the divine bloodline of Yeshua and Mary? What wouldn't we do for all that is good and righteous? Which is you too, which is why they fought the good fight all these years to protect you and to protect your bloodline as well, and fight this war to an end, so that this is the war of all wars and that this is the end of organized evil upon this earth. We're all being given a chance to move forward in one of two directions, because we can't escape the physical earth, the material plane. We're here. It's a duality. Daytime, nighttime, sunlight, darkness, sun, moon, within, without, above, below. Everything is a duality. We have to choose moving forward in truth. The hope is that we will always make the right choice. And the right choice is just casting our net to the right side of our vessel, surrendering to the Father. If we stay in alignment to all that is good, people don't want to believe in God or whatever, it's up to you, but just believe in goodness then, goodness and kindness. And if that's what we do moving forward, we can't lose ever, because all that we will receive is what is called Dharma. Because when we're wicked and selfish and live in lies and we doubt and despair and don't believe in the Father, don't trust in the Father, then all we get is karma. And that's been our lives. That's been this world. But when we cast our nets to the right, this is what Yeshua was teaching. When we cast our nets to the right, you receive dharma. And dharma just builds on itself, just like karma builds on itself. So what do you want? It's simple, it's plain, it's pure, it's obvious, and it's a choice. Do that which is right and receive goodness, or do that which is evil and receive evil consequences, which is righteous. It's only fair. Do evil, receive evil. Do good, receive good. That's karma and dharma. And remember, when Colleen and I came along and began to teach this whole nature of creation of God, he doesn't need to get involved because he's already created it. That the consequences, the real magnetic consequences of reality on this earth is that whatever we do, we receive karma and dharma. And when we were explaining this, people are going, you're such morons because there's no such thing as dharma. It's just karma. All you have, and there's good karma, bad karma. No, there's karma and dharma. And ultimately, all karma is good because it's there to teach us a necessary lesson. Even though it may appear bad, it's good because it's teaching us that cheaters never prosper, ever.
Knew it and were destroyed for it. The Merovingians claimed it and were overthrown because of it. And the Catholic Church has spent 2 millennia trying to erase every trace of it. But truth, like DNA, has a way of persisting. The 17 families identified in the 2016 study are just the beginning. As genetic testing becomes more widespread and accessible, more descendants will be identified. The bloodline that the Church tried to extinguish has not only survived but flourished. Sarah's legacy lives on in the genes of thousands, perhaps millions, who carry within their cells the biological echo of Christianity's most suppressed truth. The French legends speak of a day when the hidden bloodline will be revealed, when the descendants of Sarah will step forward to reclaim their heritage. That day might be closer than we think. Every genetic test, every archaeological discovery, every document pulled from long-sealed archives brings us closer to the truth. The Church's power to suppress this knowledge weakens with each passing year. The internet makes it impossible to completely censor information. The truth about Mary Magdalene and her daughter is emerging from the shadows of history. What does this mean for Christianity? If Jesus was married, if he had a child, it doesn't diminish his spiritual message. In fact, it might enhance it. A Jesus who experienced human love, who knew the joy of fatherhood, who understood the fear of a parent trying to protect their child, is more relatable, more human, more real than the ethereal figure the Church has presented. The Gnostics understood this. They saw the union of Jesus and Mary Magdalene as the sacred marriage, the joining of divine masculine and feminine that creates new life, both physical and spiritual. The final piece of evidence might be the most obvious: the complete absence of any mention of Jesus' wife in the canonical Gospels. In first-century Jewish culture, it would have been extraordinary for a rabbi to be unmarried, so extraordinary that it would have required explanation. The Gospels explain everything else unusual about Jesus: why he was baptized despite being sinless, why he ate with tax collectors, why he spoke to Samaritans, but they never explain why he was unmarried. Unless, of course, he wasn't. Unless Mary Magdalene's role was so well known to early Christians that it didn't need explanation, until later editors removed those references to protect the emerging church hierarchy. The silence speaks volumes. The persecution reveals the threat. The genetic evidence confirms the survival. The archaeological discoveries provide physical proof. The documentary evidence, despite centuries of destruction, still points to the truth. Mary Magdalene was not a reformed prostitute. She was the wife of Jesus, the mother of his child, the rightful heir to his spiritual authority. And her daughter Sarah carried that legacy forward, hidden but never destroyed, suppressed but never eliminated. The bloodline of Jesus and Mary Magdalene hasn't vanished. It has been transmitted through centuries of secret marriages, hidden genealogies, and quiet family traditions. It survives in the DNA of families who might not even know their true heritage. It persists in the legends and traditions that no amount of persecution could erase. And now, in our time, when science can read the truth written in our genes, when archaeology can uncover what was buried, when documents long hidden are finally seeing light, the secret is emerging. The missing detail, the one that connects all the evidence, is both simple and revolutionary. Sarah was real. She lived, she had children, and those children had children, creating an unbroken chain from the 1st century to today. The surname Magdala, appearing in medieval documents, wasn't a coincidence or a fabrication. It was a marker, a way for the bloodline to identify itself to those who knew the secret. The families who bore that name knew exactly who they were and what they represented, and they paid the ultimate price for that knowledge. As we stand at this threshold of revelation, we must ask ourselves, what other truths have been hidden? If the Church could suppress something this fundamental for 2,000 years, what else have they concealed? The archives of the Vatican, containing 53 miles of shelving, hold documents that no outside researcher has ever seen. The secret archives, renamed in 2019 to the Apostolic Archives, in a futile attempt to reduce conspiracy theories, still restrict access to anything that might damage the reputation of the Church. What reputation needs such protection, if not one built on systematic deception? The truth about Jesus and Mary Magdalene's daughter isn't just a historical curiosity. It's a key that unlocks 2,000 years of religious manipulation. It reveals how spiritual authority was stolen from those who had the strongest claim to it. It shows how women were systematically excluded from Christian leadership by erasing the example of the woman who should have led the Church. And it demonstrates that the most powerful institution in Western history was built on a foundation of deliberate lies. Sarah's story is our story. Her suppression is the suppression of truth itself. Her survival is proof that no lie, no matter how powerful its proponents, can completely destroy what is real. The bloodline persists, the truth emerges, and the missing detail, the one the Church feared most, is now complete. Jesus and Mary Magdalene had a daughter. She had descendants, and they live among us still. The Cathedral of Saint-Maximin-la-Sainte-Baume, where those 1st century bones were discovered, holds one final mystery. In the crypt, behind the reliquary that supposedly contains Mary Magdalene's skull, there's a small ossuary that tourists never see. It's labeled simply Sarah, in fading medieval script. The Church claims it contains the bones of an unknown medieval saint, but local tradition, passed down through generations of caretakers, tells a different story. They say it holds the remains of the daughter, reunited with her mother after centuries of separation. When Church officials tried to remove it in 1969, the local population rioted. The ossuary remains, a silent testimony to a truth that refuses to die. The Romani people, who have venerated Sarah Lacali for over a millennium, have a saying, "The blood remembers what the mind forgets." They've kept the memory of Sarah alive, not through documents or monuments, but through devotion passed from parent to child, an unbroken chain of remembrance that no persecution could sever. Every year when they gather at Sainte Marie de la Mer, they're not just honoring a saint, they're keeping alive the memory of the daughter whose existence threatened an empire. Modern DNA technology has given us the tools to prove what legend and tradition have long claimed. The mitochondrial DNA that passes unchanged from mother to daughter has preserved Sarah's genetic signature for 2,000 years. Every woman who carries those specific markers is living proof that the Church's version of history is incomplete. They are the biological evidence of Christianity's greatest cover-up, and as more people test their DNA, more descendants will be discovered, each one a small crack in the edifice of institutional deception. The implications extend beyond Christianity. If one of the world's major religions could systematically suppress such a fundamental truth, what does that say about institutional authority in general? How many other historical narratives have been shaped not by fact, but by the needs of power? The story of Sarah and the Magdalene bloodline is a cautionary tale about the danger of allowing any institution to monopolize truth. The Languedoc region of France, where so many Magdalene traditions survived, is now experiencing a renaissance of interest in its suppressed history. Museums are displaying Cathar artifacts that were hidden for centuries. Archaeologists are excavating sites that the Church once declared off-limits. Historians are publishing research that would have gotten them excommunicated a generation ago.
Imagine bringing your side project to life just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
The truth, so long suppressed, is flooding into the light like water breaking through a dam. The academic world is slowly acknowledging what independent researchers have claimed for decades. In 2020, Harvard Divinity School held a symposium on Mary Magdalene and the sacred feminine in early Christianity. Papers presented there included DNA analyses, archaeological findings, and textual criticism that would have been career-ending just 20 years ago. Professor Karen King's discovery of the so-called Gospel of Jesus' Wife papyrus, while controversial, opened doors to discussions about Jesus' marital status that had been taboo in academic circles. Even if that specific papyrus proves to be a later creation, the questions it raised can no longer be ignored. The financial implications of the Magdalene bloodline are staggering. If descendants of Jesus and Mary Magdalene could prove their lineage, they might have legal claims to properties and treasures accumulated by the Church over 2 millennia. This isn't fantasy, it's a real concern that has prompted the Vatican to quietly settle with several families who possessed compelling genealogical documentation. These settlements, always with strict non-disclosure agreements, suggest that the Church takes the possibility of surviving descendants very seriously indeed. The spiritual implications are even more profound. If spiritual authority can be transmitted through bloodline, as well as apostolic succession, then the entire structure of church hierarchy comes into question. The descendants of Sarah wouldn't just be historical curiosities. They would be potential spiritual leaders with a claim that predates and supersedes papal authority. This is why the Church has been so desperate to deny not just the bloodline's existence, but the very possibility of its existence. The secret Gospel of Mark, discovered by Morton Smith in 1958 at the Mar Saba Monastery, contains passages that were deliberately removed from the canonical version. One describes Jesus spending the night with a young man, teaching him the mystery of the kingdom of God. While some have interpreted this sexually, the more likely explanation, given first-century Jewish initiation practices, is that Jesus was conducting a ritual that required family participation. Was this young man a relative? A son? The Church's violent reaction to this discovery, including allegations that Smith forged the document despite multiple authentication studies, suggests they feared what this text revealed about Jesus' family life. The Tower of Magdala, the actual archaeological site in Israel after which Mary was named, has yielded its own secrets. Excavations there have uncovered a first-century synagogue with a unique stone bearing the earliest known depiction of the temple menorah. But more interesting are the residential quarters, which show evidence of unusual wealth and sophistication. The woman known as Mary Magdalene came from privilege and power. She wasn't a peripheral figure who attached herself to Jesus' movement. She was a patron whose resources made the movement possible. A woman of such standing would never have traveled with a man who wasn't her husband. Jewish law and custom would have forbidden it. The chemical analysis of the burial spices found on the bones in Saint-Maximin reveals another layer of truth. The specific combination of myrrh, aloes, and nard matches exactly the formula described in the Talmud for burial of the highest-ranking Jews. This wasn't just any burial. It was a royal burial. Someone with access to enormous wealth and deep knowledge of Jewish burial customs arranged Mary Magdalene's interment. The Merovingian kings, who claimed to protect her tomb, might have known exactly whose remains they were guarding. The linguistic evidence adds another dimension. The name Sarah doesn't appear in the New Testament, yet it's one of the most important names in Jewish tradition. Sarah was Abraham's wife, the mother of nations, the matriarch of the Jewish people. For Mary Magdalene to name her daughter Sarah would have been a declaration of intent, a claim that this child would mother a new nation, a new spiritual lineage. The Cathars understood this symbolism. In their texts, they refer to the new Sarah, who would birth the true Israel of the Spirit. The patterns of persecution reveal the Church's greatest fears. During the Albigensian Crusade, the Inquisition didn't just target Cathar believers, they systematically destroyed entire family lines. The massacre at Béziers, where every man, woman, and child was killed, makes sense only if the goal wasn't just to eliminate heresy, but to extinguish a bloodline. The famous quote, "Kill them all, God will know his own," takes on new meaning when we understand that his own might have referred to descendants of a very specific family. The Templar banking system, the first international financial network, might have had a deeper purpose than generating wealth. Some researchers suggest it was designed to support and protect Magdalene descendants scattered across Europe. The Templars' sudden arrest on Friday, October 13, 1307, came immediately after Philip IV of France learned about their genealogical archives. The king didn't just want their gold, he wanted their records. Most were destroyed, but fragments survived, hidden in Swiss banks and Scottish castles, preserving traces of the bloodline they died to protect. The Renaissance explosion of Magdalene imagery wasn't coincidental. As the Church's grip on information weakened, artists began encoding dangerous knowledge in their works. Botticelli's Birth of Venus might actually depict Mary Magdalene's arrival in France, with the shell symbolizing her journey across water. The mysterious smirk of Leonardo's Mona Lisa might reflect knowledge of her true identity as a descendant of the Magdalene line. These weren't just paintings, they were acts of covert resistance, preserving truth in plain sight for those who knew how to look. The Protestant Reformation takes on new significance in this context. Martin Luther's challenge to papal authority might have been inspired by knowledge of the Magdalene bloodline. His emphasis on direct relationship with God, bypassing church hierarchy, echoes Gnostic teachings about Mary Magdalene's spiritual authority. The violence of the Church's counter-Reformation, particularly in regions where Magdalene traditions were strong, suggests they were fighting not just theological disagreement, but existential threat to their legitimacy. The witch trials of the 16th and 17th centuries targeted women who claimed spiritual authority outside church structures. Many of these women, particularly in southern France and northern Spain, came from families with Cathar roots and Magdalene traditions. They were midwives and healers who possessed knowledge passed down through female lines for generations. The Church didn't just execute them, they destroyed their family records, their homes, their entire lineages. They were completing the work begun during the Albigensian Crusade, erasing the last traces of the Magdalene descent. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls provided crucial context for understanding first-century Jewish marriage customs. The Essene community that produced these scrolls practiced a form of Judaism that many scholars believe influenced Jesus. Their texts speak of a teacher of righteousness who would come with his companion to establish a new covenant. The Hebrew word used for companion, kenegdo, is the same used in Genesis for Eve as Adam's partner. It implies not just companionship, but necessary completion, two halves of a spiritual whole. The Egyptian Coptic tradition, one of the oldest Christian communities, preserved texts and traditions that Rome tried to suppress. In their version of the resurrection story, Mary Magdalene doesn't just discover the empty tomb, she performs the ritual purification of the site, a role that could only be filled by the deceased's wife or mother. The Coptic Pope Shenouda III, before his death in 2012, stated publicly that the Western Church had misunderstood Mary Magdalene's role, a diplomatic way of saying they had lied about it. The Order of the Rose Cross, the Rosicrucians, claimed to possess the true story of Christian origins. Their symbol, a rose blooming on a cross, represents the bloodline, rose, surviving the crucifixion.
Say goodbye to your reading glasses, computer glasses, and even your sunglasses. Introducing the last pair of
Cross. Their text.
And again, isn't it interesting that running all through Europe in this, supposed north to south line is a bloodline, is an actual bloodline that runs straight through the center of Paris and right through London. Isn't it interesting that those two cities would be architecturally lined upon this bloodline, which runs all the way into Scotland, and the Templar Church of the Rose in the north that Dan Brown made famous. Again, right on the Rose line. The Rose line is the bloodline, and it's on the prime meridian. The prime meridian is the first. It is a symbol for that which is purest, that which is true. That's why it's on the prime meridian. And the the architectural structure of Europe itself absolutely tells us powerfully the truth in what I just shared.
It's written in elaborate cipher speak of the virgin widow and her sacred progeny who would one day restore the garden. They weren't speaking in spiritual metaphors. They were preserving genealogical facts in the only way that could survive church persecution.
And if you guys remember back in 2019, when the cathedral, the great old cathedral on the Ile de Notre Dame in Paris on the Seine, when that very famous ancient church burned, the section that burned was the section that housed up top in the Great Dome those panels of Mary Magdalene and her and Sarah and her and Christ and these children. That section was all done in wood panelings, and it was burned. And then, if you remember, President Trump made a big deal out of this, and he physically went and attended, saying that this is a very big deal, and that they were going to do everything they could for a restoration of this great monument. And people are wondering why it was such a big deal and why they were making such a big. Now you know why. Now you know why. And Trump is connected to this. And again, if you're going to place the bloodline anywhere, then of course the founding fathers, when they created America, would know that the number one destination moving forward for the bloodline was always going to be America. And surrounding that, obviously, then this Canada and Mexico and where would be such an incredible place to put the bloodline in plain sight? Hollywood and the music industry, right? Creators creating through the right hemisphere of the brain, teaching all of this divine coding in plain sight. Where else why would you call it, as I've always shared with you, why would you call this place, if it was somehow wicked and evil and created by the Canaanites, why would you call it Hollywood? Holly is the most divine and spiritual of wood. The green leaves, the red berries is a unification of the sacred feminine with the Father. Hollywood is holy wood. It's holy land. And you cannot deny, people want to, but you simply cannot deny the teachings, the universal teachings that is Hollywood, which is do the right thing. Because when you don't, shit's going to happen and it will not turn out well for you. If you want to minimize it down to that, that's what Hollywood movies have always shown. But far deeper than that are the truth of truths. And again, like I shared with you, rock and roll has always been a mirror to the bloodline, which is roll the rock. And that these teachings have been beautifully hidden in plain sight of all these divine creations known as albums, where there's always a central theme or message within it. Where else? What better place in all the world than America? And in the 20th century, what better place than Hollywood or the music industry for the bloodline? There is no better place. Hollywood and the music industry are filled with the bloodline. And if that offends you, you're not ready for the truth. And that's on you, because the truth is coming. When it arrives, we'll see, but it's coming and nothing can stop it. So the more you fight it, the harder things are going to be for you, because we will get to a day, we will get to a moment where the truth will arrive like an avalanche. And if you get caught in its way, instead of just going with it, letting it all go and going with the flow, then you'll be absorbed by it. You'll be rushed over by it, or you can just align to it. The truth is the truth, and there's no other way to move forward, or disaster will continually strike again.
Modern France still bears the scars of the Magdalene suppression. Entire villages in Languedoc were abandoned after the Albigensian Crusade, their populations exterminated or scattered. Local museums display artifacts that residents hid for centuries: Cathar crosses, Templar seals, genealogical documents that could have meant death if discovered. The collective trauma of the persecution created a culture of secrecy that persists today. Families still refuse to discuss certain ancestors, certain traditions, certain truths that have been dangerous for so long that silence became hereditary. The Vatican's recent efforts to rehabilitate Mary Magdalene are too little.
Well,
too
and
late.
let's be really clear and honest about this. The great shift in change with regard to Mary Magdalene is all because of President Donald Trump and his status of president-elect. So in early November of 2016, he was elected president of the most powerful nation upon earth, and an inheritance of the most powerful, important role on the entire earth, this leader of the white hats in public. And so a month later, in early December of 2016, before he ever officially stood as the 45th president of the United States, in early December of 2016, a remarkable thing occurred where this new Pope Francis was suddenly moved to declare Mary Magdalene the apostle of apostles, which means that the number one apostle, which again is, people don't see it that way, but it's true, which is an acknowledgement of the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Philip and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene herself. And they created Mary Magdalene as a saint at the same time. So she was sainted. She was given her own day, Mary Magdalene Day, which they set as July 22nd, which is really interesting because 7 times 22, July 7, 7 times 22 is 154. And do this gematria for 154. Wow. And it's all there. It's just perfectly all there in plain sight. So she was sainted, she was given her own official day, and she was given the title Apostle of Apostles. 1 month. Who the heck do you think Donald Trump, whatever his real name is, but who the heck do you think he is and where his lineage came from? Right? Stonemasons, ancient Egypt, all the way to this great bloodline, and then all of these organizations to be able to protect the bloodline, the Merovingian bloodline that married into the bloodline of Yeshua and Mary, then the Cathars, then the Knights Templar, then the Rosicrucians, and out of the Templar Knights and the Rosicrucians, they created Freemasonry. So you just also need to be aware of this. Just in the last week, just in the last number of days since I did that massive revelation on X the other day about the 2,000-year history, and that it's all based in and around these groups. This group, and in particular, took form through the Templar Knights in this great plan that was set in motion, suddenly, have you not noticed just in the last 3, 4, 5 days, whatever it's been, just a massive increase again, and not just in the lies and hatred of Freemasonry, but suddenly all the attacks on the Knights Templar once again. And I thought we'd gotten to the point where pretty much everyone had figured out that Knights Templar, at the very least, are the good guys. And suddenly, after I posted that, now all of these sort of major truthers that don't know anything of the truth are suddenly attacking the Knights Templar again, because they have to, desperately trying to cling to their task or their role of obfuscating the truth in plain sight.
In 2016, Pope Francis elevated her feast day to the same level as the Apostles, acknowledging her as Apostle to the Apostles. But this cosmetic change doesn't address the fundamental lie about her identity. The Church still refuses to discuss her possible marriage to Jesus, her potential motherhood, or the implications of her bloodline. They're trying to control the narrative, even as it slips through their fingers. The tourism industry around Magdalene's sites in France has become a form of economic vindication. Millions visit Sainte-Marie de la Mer, Saint-Maximin-la-Sainte-Baume, and Rennes-le-Château, generating revenue that the Church once tried to prevent through persecution. The local communities that protected these traditions through centuries of danger are finally benefiting from their courage. Every tourist who comes seeking the truth about Mary Magdalene is a small victory over the forces that tried to erase her. The feminist theological movement has embraced Mary Magdalene as a symbol of women's suppressed spiritual authority. But she's more than a symbol. If the bloodline survived, there are women alive today who carry not just her DNA but her spiritual inheritance. These women, unknown to themselves and history, might possess an innate spiritual authority that transcends institutional ordination. The Church's refusal to ordain women takes on new meaning when we understand they might be preventing the rightful heirs from claiming their inheritance. The digital age has made suppression of truth nearly impossible. Documents that the Church thought were destroyed exist in digital copies scattered across servers worldwide. DNA databases are connecting families separated by centuries of persecution. Amateur historians are crowdsourcing translations of ancient texts that academics won't touch. The truth about Mary Magdalene and her daughter is emerging not from a single dramatic revelation, but from thousands of small discoveries shared instantly across the globe. The psychological impact of this truth on believing Christians is complex. Many find their faith strengthened by a Jesus who experienced human love and fatherhood. Others feel betrayed by institutions that hid this truth for 2 millennia. The growing movement of Magdalene Christians who accept the marriage and bloodline while maintaining their faith proves that Christianity can survive this revelation. In fact, it might emerge stronger, more honest, more complete. The legal battles over access to church archives continue. Freedom of information requests, lawsuits, and diplomatic pressure are slowly prying open vaults that have been sealed for centuries. Every released document adds another piece to the puzzle. The Church's desperate attempts to maintain control over these archives, including moving documents to jurisdictions with stronger secrecy laws, reveals how much they still have to hide. The scientific community is approaching the Magdalene question with increasing sophistication. New techniques in ancient DNA analysis, isotope testing for geographical origins, and comparative linguistics are providing tools to verify or disprove bloodline claims. Universities are funding research that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. The truth is emerging not from faith or speculation, but from hard science that can't be dismissed as heresy. The entertainment industry's fascination with the Magdalene story, from the Da Vinci Code to countless documentaries, has prepared the public consciousness for truth that would have been shocking a generation ago. Fiction has made fact believable. The Church's hysterical response to these popular works revealed their fear that entertainment might accomplish what scholarship couldn't, making the truth about Mary Magdalene and her daughter common knowledge. The interfaith implications are profound. If Judaism's messianic line continued through Jesus and Mary Magdalene's daughter, it challenges both Christian and Jewish theology. Some rabbinical scholars have privately suggested that the Magdalene bloodline might represent the hidden righteous of Jewish mysticism, the 36 hidden saints whose existence sustains the world. The possibility that descendants of Jesus might have returned to Judaism after fleeing Christian persecution adds another layer of historical irony. The Islamic tradition, which reveres Jesus as a prophet but not divine, might be more comfortable with the idea of his marriage and descendants. The Quran speaks respectfully of Mary Magdalene, Maryam al-Magdaliyah, and some Islamic scholars have long suspected that Christianity hid aspects of Jesus' human life. The discovery of the bloodline might actually bring Islam and Christianity closer together, united by a more human understanding of Jesus. The indigenous peoples of southern France, the Occitans, have preserved oral traditions that academics dismissed as folklore, but which align perfectly with historical evidence of the Magdalene presence. Their songs, stories, and ceremonies encode memories of the foreign queen and her dark daughter who brought the blood of kings to their lands.
Las reliquias sepultadas durante milenios son la llave de una tecnología olvidada.
These aren't fairy tales. They're cultural memories preserved in the only form that couldn't be burned by the Inquisition. The economic implications for the Catholic Church are staggering. If the Magdalene bloodline is officially acknowledged, it could trigger the largest religious reformation in history. Churches built on the assumption of Jesus' celibacy might empty. Donations might dry up. The moral authority claimed by celibate clergy would evaporate. The Church's desperate attempts to suppress this truth aren't just about theology, they're about institutional survival. The philosophical implications challenge the entire structure of Western thought. If the divine masculine and feminine were united in Jesus and Mary Magdalene, producing a child who carried both aspects forward, it suggests a completeness that the Church's masculine-dominated theology lacks. The Gnostic understanding of divine syzygy, the necessary union of opposites, might be more than mystical metaphor. It might be biological fact. The environmental movement has embraced the Magdalene story as evidence of Christianity's suppressed earth-centered wisdom. If Jesus had a wife and child, he was connected to the cycles of birth and generation that the Church's celibate theology rejected. The Cathars' respect for nature, their vegetarianism, their belief in the sacredness of life might have come from traditions preserved by the Magdalene lineage that offered an alternative to the Church's dominion theology. The medical implications of the bloodline are intriguing. Some researchers have suggested that the genetic markers associated with the Magdalene descent might carry more than just ancestral information. The families identified in the 2016 study showed unusual patterns of longevity, disease resistance, and what some researchers carefully call anomalous cognitive abilities. While science doesn't support the idea of holy blood carrying supernatural properties, the possibility of beneficial genetic mutations preserved in a small intermarrying population is scientifically plausible. The artistic legacy of the Magdalene truth continues to unfold. Contemporary artists freed from fear of church persecution are creating works that celebrate rather than hide her true identity. Musicians are composing operas about Sarah's journey. Sculptors are creating monuments to the suppressed feminine. Writers are reimagining Christianity's founding story with Mary Magdalene in her rightful place as wife, mother, and spiritual leader. The educational implications are transformative. How do we teach Christian history, knowing that its central narrative has been deliberately falsified? Textbooks are being rewritten, curricula reconsidered. Students are learning to question not just religious authority, but all institutional narratives. The Magdalene revelation is teaching a generation that truth matters more than tradition, that evidence trumps dogma, that even the most powerful institutions can't suppress reality forever. The therapeutic community is recognizing the psychological damage done by 2,000 years of suppressing the divine feminine. Women raised in traditions that denied them spiritual authority are finding healing in Mary Magdalene's true story. Men trapped in toxic masculine religious structures are discovering a Jesus who embraced love, partnership, and fatherhood. The Magdalene truth isn't just historical correction, it's psychological liberation. The technological tools now available make further suppression impossible. Satellite archaeology can find hidden sites without excavation. AI can analyze textual patterns to identify redacted passages. Blockchain technology can preserve documents in forms that can't be altered or destroyed. The tools of the 21st century are perfectly designed to reveal truths hidden since the first. The final revelation might come not from France, but from Israel itself. Recent excavations near Magdala have uncovered structures that don't match any known first-century architecture. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed chambers that haven't been opened for 2 millennia. The Israeli Antiquities Authority has restricted access, citing security concerns, but the real concern might be what those chambers contain. If Mary Magdalene left anything in her homeland before fleeing to France, it's waiting there beneath the soil of Galilee to confirm what the French evidence has already revealed. As we approach the 3rd millennium of Christianity, we stand at a crossroads. We can continue to accept institutional lies that have shaped 2,000 years of Western civilization, or we can embrace the truth that Mary Magdalene was the wife of Jesus, the mother of his child, and the rightful heir to his spiritual legacy. The evidence is overwhelming. The DNA doesn't lie. The documents, despite centuries of destruction, still speak. The archaeological record confirms what legend has long claimed. Sarah, the daughter of Jesus and Mary Magdalene, was real. She lived, she had children, and her descendants survive today. They carry in their cells the biological proof of Christianity's most suppressed truth. They are living testimony to love that couldn't be destroyed, to truth that couldn't be silenced, to a bloodline that survived 2 millennia of persecution. The Church's greatest fear has been realized. The truth is out. The bloodline is confirmed. The daughter has been remembered. And with that remembrance comes the collapse of 2,000 years of carefully constructed lies. What rises from those ruins might be a Christianity more honest, more complete, more true to its founders' actual life and loves than anything the institutional church has offered. The missing detail that connects all the evidence is simply this: love. Jesus loved Mary Magdalene. She loved him. They created a child from that love, and that child carried forward not just their DNA, but the hope of a different kind of Christianity, one that honors both masculine and feminine, one that sees the sacred in human love and generation, one that doesn't require celibacy and denial, but celebrates the full range of human experience as divine. This is the truth about the daughter of Jesus and Mary Magdalene. This is the secret the Church killed millions to suppress. This is the reality that changes everything we thought we knew about the foundations of Western civilization. Sarah lived. Her descendants live still. And in their living presence among us, the greatest lie ever told is finally, definitively, irrevocably exposed. The revolution isn't coming, it's here. It's in every DNA test that reveals Levantine Jewish ancestry in European families. It's in every document pulled from long-sealed archives. It's in every archaeological discovery that confirms what the Church denied. It's in every woman who claims her spiritual authority despite institutional prohibition. It's in every person who chooses truth over tradition, evidence over dogma, reality over comfortable lies. Mary Magdalene's ultimate victory isn't that her bloodline survived. It's that her truth outlasted the lies told about her. She has been restored not by church decree, but by historical evidence. Her daughter has been remembered not through official recognition, but through scientific proof. Her descendants have been identified not by papal acknowledgement, but by genetic confirmation. The tower has fallen, Magdala has risen, the daughter has returned, and Christianity will never be the same.
Wow. Wow. The revolution isn't coming. It's here. The revolution isn't coming. It's here. And all it's waiting for is the 100th monkey effect. Once there is that magical percentage of the population that is aligning to this frequency of the union between Yeshua and Mary and this divine bloodline, then the revolution becomes manifest here and now in what other people will call reality, but it's already here. It's already here. All it is, all of this is Q, the Q plan, whatever you want to call it. All of this is already here. It's already happening. How quickly it happens is entirely up to us. You don't think that they're monitoring constantly where the populace, I mean, there's a populace that's literally so written off that they know that these people are just going to have to deal with the revelation of truth. But in particular, it's people who call themselves truthers and are allegedly interested in truth, how they're going to respond to these things that they're not doing well with at all. Again, when you find yourself over the target, directly over the target, and therefore what you're sharing is in alignment to that which is truth, then allegorically you are at the center of the earth. And there are very few people that have ever journeyed or discovered the center of the earth. Very, very few. Most people just journey back and forth on the shoreline of Antarctica, thinking of newer and cleverer ways in which to kill penguins and eat and barbecue their dead roasting flesh. When you find yourself surrounded by these larger followings, this is absolutely no vindication that what you're sharing or what you're teaching is the truth and that you're a good teacher. All you're doing, because these people only align with those that are just patting them on the back. That's all they're looking for. You have this massive flip from disbelievers to believers, but they're basically the same people. They've just flip-flopped on what it is that they believe in. And everything was conspiracy theories and all that. But the world was just, a shitty, dark place full of despair. And all they've now done is that everything is now a conspiracy theory, but the world is dark and it's evil and it's just filled with, misery and despair. And that's what we're dealing with is the blind leading the blind. And the fact of the matter is, why is America a republic? Because only ever in our true history have the few ever known the truth. The vast majority are too busy leading false lives and chasing carrots and storylines and narratives that they think are real, and around and around and around and around the wheel they go. The vast majority have no time, no interest, and are not willing to listen to anything that resembles the truth. That's why America was created as a republic, so that the few who do the work, the few that know, are there to provide the architecture, which are the structures and the beginnings and the apparatus of this creation, in good faith and in good standing, which will survive millennia because they're good and righteous. That will always attract the good and the righteous to this creation. Because America was created by good and righteous men and women, it will always attract good and righteous men and women. It's been infiltrated by darkness because they've perceived it correctly as their enemy of enemies. And so they've needed to pinpoint, target the Republic of the United States of America, and they found people willing to be their arms and legs upon the earth, but far more through coercion by kidnapping their families than by finding deep, dark, wicked people. That most of the people that have over time become minions and helpers to the Canaanites have done so because in their mind they've had no other choice. And you and I are impossible to stand back and judge that situation, because what if it happened to us? What if our wives or husbands and children had been kidnapped by these monsters? So what we don't need right now is judgment. What we do require right now is faith and a trust that there is a higher power, and that everything that has happened, and it's obvious to even the most lost at this point that clearly something is going on. Many people within the truth community are actually now beginning to admit that there has to be some level of a victory, even if it's not quite complete yet. But they still will not acknowledge how or by whom this victory was achieved. They can't. They can't because they're liars, and that revelation would unveil them as liars. So then they just become silent about how all of this happened, and their followers just seem to be totally okay with this complete aversion to answering these questions that need to be surveyed, understood, and answered. So the revolution isn't coming, it's already here. When it realizes into a sweeping revolution everywhere on this earth will come when there are enough monkeys who've left the swinging branches and are actually doing something about all of this. Because again, if you want the bloodline of Yeshua and Mary to flow perfectly through you, then you have to align to Yeshua and Mary. And as you heard throughout that beautiful presentation tonight, it starts with the truth that Mary Magdalene was completely and unapologetically about the truth. And of course, Yeshua is historically associated with truth. And isn't it interesting that this Roman church that is the biggest, most powerful church through all of history literally teaches the exact opposite of his actual words in a book that they stamp their name on. How do they get around that? We decode and decipher what these words mean, not you. And if you try to do that yourself, there will be consequences. And that's what Rome and SPQR has always done. Thuggery, bullies. That's why bullying has been encouraged powerfully over the last 2,000 years. This fallen archetype of modern man is disgusting, but it's not really the fault of the fallen modern man when they really haven't been given any alternatives. And when there have been alternatives like, John Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and many others, these people have an alarming consistency with disappearance. And then all that's left becomes an ambiguity. And that the messages of truth have been more and more and more encoded within work, and that it's up to us to decode. But if you have an aversion to the coding, which is symbology and numerology in particular, and astrotheology, then how could you possibly be expected to decode anything? If you don't know the truth, you cannot decode anything. And that's where most people find themselves. And then they go online and they blame sort of no one in general, but everyone in general, just not themselves. That there's no truth out there. There's some people that tell, but mostly it's just all lies. It's all just a shit show, and that there's no way to find the truth. Yes, there is. You just don't want to see it. And if you don't want to see it, you are not of this bloodline. God help you moving forward, because the new earth that's coming won't be for everyone. To be able to even see that which is coming, you would have to be able to raise your frequency to a point of being able to physically see something that even modern science has proved is basically just empty space. So it's energy and it's frequencies and vibrations. And if your energy is not there, if your spirit DNA is not activated, how are you possibly going to see the new earth where the sacred feminine is risen? And that we are a balanced people of care and compassion, sympathy, empathy, love, and kindness. So you want this to move faster? Open your mind. You want the darkness to be revealed, and you want the truth to suddenly present itself? You're proving to everyone who's watching you can't handle the truth. So until you start to prove to people that your mind is wide open and that whatever the truth is, your mind is wide open to it, then the song and the dance of the movie will continue for as long as it needs to potentially save as many people as possible. Because again, if everything is energy, therefore frequencies and vibrations, that which is coming, which is the second coming of this straight and narrow way that Christ lived, walked, taught, it won't be visible to the many. And if it's not visible to the many, the only path that they will take will be broad and spacious and will go down. It will not go up, and it will not go up and to the right. It will not be straight. It will not be narrow. It will be a broad and spacious path that weaves its way through hell. But that's your choice, to receive that karma, righteously so, by turning a deaf ear and a blind eye to the truth that's being presented to you in plain sight. All anyone has ever had to do with Colleen and I, and that's why we've always taught this way, without footnotes and without a bibliography, is that we've taught through a frequency. And that if you open your mind and truly listen, then you will magically within yourself align to that frequency, because what you're hearing is the truth, and it will resonate with you because you are a creation of the Father and the Mother. So therefore you are truth. It attaches to these myriad of sensors and receptors that are not just in the brain, but are flowing through our blood everywhere in our body, and they will take hold, but only if you allow them to. There are so many people that will see a link or an access to our videos and will not touch it. Can't help you. Cannot help you unless you wish to help yourself. And these are the very same people that are tired of all of this movie, are tired of all of this stuff that's happening. Why don't they? Why don't you? That's the answer. The answer is you. Stop blaming everyone else and looking for everyone else to save you. Even if there were space aliens, and there's not, but even if they were, they would never come to save us, because we would have earned nothing. We would have learned nothing, because we would have earned nothing. And the fact of the matter is that our track record is not very good, glorious, or worthy. And to receive miraculous help, we have to be worthy of this gift. So stop blaming others and stop looking for others to save you. When people ask me this question endlessly, what do I always say? It's about you. Do the work. We do video after video, show after show. That one that we did, I think about 2 months ago now, which literally is the straight and narrow way. What does that mean? What does that look like in every moment of your life? That's a video, 3-hour video of the straight and narrow way, which anyone can do. Starts with your food, manifests to your breathing, which then influences every single aspect of your life, which is a life given to sympathy and empathy, care, compassion, kindness, and love. And then you become worthy to receive these gifts from the treasure of heaven, and vision being one of them. Vision 88, bloodline 88, right? When you can see you're of the bloodline, when you cannot see what's being presented, you know you're not of the bloodline. But don't blame anyone for that. That's on you. And it's the same thing with all of these people that are now angry that silver is starting to go up. It's now in the mid 50s. This is, it's small potatoes when you look at the bigger picture. But for now, it's a big deal. It's a very, very big, powerful deal, because it's hinting at the fall of the Fed. And once the Fed falls, it's over. Once the Fed falls, this whole organized society lie is over. And it'll all happen quickly, because it's all connected to the same singular lie. So the Fed has to go. The Fed has to die. Silver is what kills vampires. The Fed is a vampire. It has bloodletted us for 112 years. Methuselah, 112. Star Trek, 112. So it's always about you and I. It's always about the willingness to do the truth. You're worried because you didn't buy the silver, you didn't listen, or you didn't have the money. Don't worry about it. Again, this whole thing about buying up the silver, it helps people that can't stabilize, still and silence their minds. It gives them something to do that at the very least is inherently positive versus negative. But at the end of the day, the wealth of this world, which is not even begun by the wealth that has been taken back by the Canaanites that they stole, there's infinitely more wealth beyond just what the Canaanites have stolen from us. But that's all going to be shared. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day how much silver you did or didn't buy. We're all equal shareholders in this new partnership of one species. So it isn't just one nation under God, it's one species under God. And that just means faith that the Father has a plan for all of us. He's the creator. He knows all. He's way up there. He sees all, and he's aware in all moments. Just let him figure it all out for you. That's not your job to drive the vehicle. Your job is to enjoy the ride. Let him guide you. Let him take you wherever he feels and needs, the creator of all. Let him decide where your vehicle needs to go. Your vehicle is you. Your vessel is you. It's a metaphor for you. Let him guide you on a path. I guarantee you that will be straight and narrow. Straight and narrow means no distractions, pure righteousness, goodness, kindness, care, compassion, sympathy, empathy, love. That's what you're here to do. Let him guide you. And along the way, just do your best, do your level best. That's what you're here to do. Wherever he leads you is where he wants you to be, precisely when he wants. Wouldn't that be great for a change, that you suddenly start arriving to all of these miraculous places and miraculous people and miraculous events precisely when you're meant to be there, instead of constantly missing out and forgetting or denied or whatever else? Isn't that a better way? Again, the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verses 25 through 25, verses 25 through 34. Take no thought for your life. Or do you literally think that God loves the fowl of the air more than the pinnacle of his creation, which is mankind? They wake up every morning not having to take a single thought for the clothes that they're wearing, for God already ordained them in the most beautiful clothing ever. We get up every single morning, and here in Mexico, we look at all these birds that have found our sanctuary and just love it here and surround us, and they're gorgeous. We envy their natural beauty. God did that for them. He did. They don't have to get up every morning going, oh, do I wear the blue turtleneck or the black turtleneck, and what do I wear it with? And they wake up every morning perfect, for God has already taken care of everything that we need, for he already knows what we have need of. And so they don't till a field. They don't plant seeds. They don't tend to their crops. They don't harvest their crops, and they don't collect seeds to replant the next season. They just take what is freely given by God. And that's what Yeshua is saying to you. Why don't you do the same? Why do you doubt that there won't be all of this abundance of everything that you need? There already is. There's certainly less of it now because, again, just like the Canaanites went through Egypt and knocked all of these temples of massive truth, all of these incredible structures to the ground, the pyramids are only still standing and in rough shape because they've tried everything to knock them down. But everything that they could knock down, they did. So along the way, did they fell silicon trees in Silicon Valley? Did they have they, again, just everywhere you turn and everywhere you look, blocked access to this truth? Of course they have. So get out of their world. Get out of the alignment that you have to their fake organized society, bullshit, left brain, sick, diseased, fallen world. Don't treat with it at all. Have faith. Cast thy net to the right and trust that if ye have need of this or that, God will provide all. That's what the book of Matthew, chapter 6, verses 25 through 34 is. It's pure faith, pure surrender to the Father. Take no thought. Thought is your left brain. And left brain always leads you to overthinking, doubt, and despair. So don't be of that alignment and that frequency. Cast thy net to the right hemisphere of your brain, which is a feeling, and it's more than a feeling, says Boston, correctly so. Thank you, Tommy Schultz. And align to that frequency and surrender. Why do you have to do everything at once? Why do you have to drive this vehicle with all of this insane traffic out there and then try to live a life on top of all of these things? Why do you have to work 2 jobs just to be able to buy the bare necessities for your family, and meaning therefore you cannot raise your family? So So hidden dictators, hidden puppeteers through state-sponsored schools raise your children in utter nonsense and lies. And your kids are sent to religious schools and are buggered by pastors and priests that are literally chosen for their potential to be pedophiles and keep the bloodline and the feminine out of the church and to promote buggery of our children. Again, the nuns always used to be, it's an ancient order. The ancient order of nuns goes way, way, way beyond the origins of Roman Catholicism. Nuns, these are young women that went to special schools to dedicate their lives to the Father. So nuns were always young. All of a sudden, nuns are all old because then these priests can rape them whenever they want, because these are older and frail women. They get the shit kicked out of them by young, powerful, able, wise, knowing nuns. So can't have that. So where did that order go to? Where did all of these young nuns go to? Right? Well, maybe they never were here, right? That's, conspiracy theory. That's all they do. They get rid of, and then they ridicule anyone who speaks to what we know existed. And it's like, I'm taking crazy. It feels like I'm taking crazy pills, because that's what they do. And if you talk about it, then you're excommunicated everywhere, including online. So what do we take away from the video tonight is the overwhelming evidence on every level possible of this bloodline and all of the actions of the Catholic Church that reveal itself to being obsessed with this bloodline and doing everything they could to find and destroy it, because that's all that they did. You need to remember that by the time of about 500, by the time they figured out everything that was going on and who survived and who didn't and where they were, then they realized southern France, connection to the Merovingian bloodline, and then the blood has fallen non-stop since that the 400s, that 5th century, non-stop, the blood has fallen with every organization linked to this bloodline of Yeshua and Mary. Merovingians to the Cathars to the Knights Templar, and they all have this incredible thing in common, do the Merovingians and the Cathars and the Knights Templar, that they disappeared. They suddenly just disappeared, but now they're all still here. Well, where did they go? Under the ground. Then this development of the Rosicrucian, and out of the fall of the Templars and the rise of the Rosicrucians came the Freemasons, and everybody's favorite punching bag are the Freemasons, and they don't know the first thing about Freemason at all. And Freemasonry was just created out of the Knights Templar. So you think the enemy of the Roman Catholic Church, which are the Knights Templar, are evil? That's what you're saying when you think Freemasonry, modern Freemasonry, is evil because it was born out of the Knights Templar and the Rosicrucians, and you think they're evil? So that means that you're saying you think the Knights Templar are evil, who are the enemy of all enemies to the Roman Church. Wow. Those people who murdered Christ. Some of you truthers really don't give a shit, and you don't really believe in God at all, and you really don't care. You really don't care. You're just looking for followers and some dough. But you're not thinking within at all. You're not making any sense. And you're just perpetuating endless lies. And the people who follow you are never getting out of that trap. and the karma that's attached to you and that which is coming for being the source of all of these lies and perpetuating all of these lies through this present vibration of the rise of Mary Magdalene, the rise of the sacred feminine, the rise of the Kundalini, the rise of the silver, the rise of the divine feminine, which is the truth, the karma. You can't make enough money to offset the karma that's coming to all you who knowingly perpetuate bullshit. So let's be the light of the world, plant these seeds, and in time, everyone will come to us and we'll show nothing but love and forgiveness, no matter what they said, because there's no other way moving forward. There is no other way. So we just have to be the light of the world. We have to shine our light and let them see that there is a better way. How did you do it? What did you do to get to this state where you know these things and you just always seem so positive and loving and caring and forgiving of my transgressions against you? How did you get like this? What did you do? What do you know? These things will occur. Those days will come. So you've just got to be the light. Do the work. That's what this is about. And every person who does, 1,000-fold energy of Yeshua and Mary will rise and rise and rise in strength and power and in light over this beautiful earth, under the firmament and over this level circular plane of perfect truth. So, and that's our show for tonight. I thank you so much for being here with us. I look forward to checking in with Jassy and Colleen and the gang tonight, making sure that everyone is there, healthy and happy. And I thank you so much for being here. And I thank all of the animals for being so good and allowing this fairly long show, but massively important show to take place. I'm very grateful for all of these things, and I thank you so much for being part of this and keep being open-minded to everything that is being shared with you. So have a beautiful rest of your evening and or your day. And like I say, follow on Rumble here, so you'll always have access to all these wonderful videos that are all there. Something 50 some odd pages of these incredible videos that are all there for you, over 1,000. And find us on X, which is @CharlieFreak1. And again, if and so many people, more and more people are doing this, remembering that all the animals that we're looking after. So with the 5 new baby rabbits, that brings our total to 171, which is a very interesting number, 1771, 717, 171, very interesting number at this moment. So just think about that for a sec, what the monumental supplies that are needed, just habitation as well, and all of the food, just imagine. So if any of you can help us out with the monthly cost for the animals, that's it. You don't have to. There's no charge to what we do, and there's no pressure into helping us ever. God will always help us find a way. But if you see fit to do so, it's greatly appreciated. It really helps. And Geraldine, who goes out and gets so much of our supplies, she absolutely knows how expensive things have become, how much we need, and how much we spend on a daily, weekly basis. So if you can help, that would be great. If you can't, just keep sending that beautiful love, and that works too. And we love you so much. And next Saturday, wow, Knights Templar, the truth, the connection to everything we saw tonight, just taken further. These people who went underground, who they were, how they united, what they created, and how it turned into President Trump and the Q plan and the white hats against the dark hats and all the rest of it. It's going to be an absolutely mind-blowing show with information and video that will literally, again, blow your mind, and will just confirm everything that you already know, believe, or that's being revealed to you. So thank you again very, very much. We love you, and we'll see you real soon. Mwah.